Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the third day of the NSE New Space ExpoForum 2021. It's my pleasure to host this event, chairing the finance session. I want to thank the organizer, Fondazione Amaldi and Fiera di Roma, and the NSE Scientific Committee, particularly Professor Roberto Battiston, to give me the opportunity to moderate such debate regarding the importance of role of finance in new space economy. My name is Mauro Piermaria, and I am the head of innovation and new space economy at the Italian Space Agency since 1 year. But since 2015, I was managing all the most important ASI activities related to the so-called space economy. I was managing like the creation of the Amaldi Foundation, for example, the merger and acquisition operation involving ELV and Avio, and the successful initiative of the Primo Space Venture Capital Fund, now fully operational. This year, the NSE 2021 is focusing these speeches and panels on space as an accelerator of societal needs, climate, resilience, finance, and asset protection. Today, we are going to cover the topic of finance and how this can help in expanding the societal and economic impact of space and leveraging the commercialization. I think as agency and public entity, we have a fundamental role in enabling and supporting the creation of favorable ecosystem, attracting talents and private investment in space. We need to work in different aspects such as technology, governance, regulation, and finance. Finance is essential to boost venture in commercial business activities in different stages of their maturity, supporting their sustainable growth. Different stakeholders, like the ones represented today, see it from different perspectives. Finance could be a matter of return on investment, profits generator, investment enabler, innovation instrument, and market consolidation tools, and also can push societal enhancement. Hence, from today's session, I expect we will listen consideration and experiences for these different angles. And I please to put on the screen a short presentation, 3 slides just to introduce the matter, of the today session. If you could put on the screen the presentation. I don't know if it works. There we go. Just 3 slides. Again, ahead. Okay, this is just a snapshot of the financing space startups in 2020. Is two pictures coming from the Bryce Tech report, just to show you which is the situation. Are we looking at an exponential growth of the financial investment in startup companies as they are defined into this Bryce consulting tech? You see the majority of investment is on venture capital, but you have also seed and prize grant. But there's another aspect to see. On the overall investment in finance in 2020, 70% more or less has been went to the big, the big guys, the big angels like SpaceX, Blue Origin, Virgin Galactic, and OneWeb. So it's a matter of a concentration of all this financing to big companies, which maybe are not still anymore startups. So we cannot consider them as a startup. Next one. And the other aspect is related to, let's see, the situation on different sector of the investment. This is these are pictures for another report from Space Capital, which is a venture capital fund investing in space. And we are considering not only, let's say, startups, we are considering the overall aspect on space economy. And if you divide the financial investment in infrastructure, distribution, and application, you see the big amount is coming to the what we call upstream sector, and so investment went to Ortcom, OneWeb, Rocket Lab. A small portion in distribution we call midstream, or all the companies that work to let's say process, manage space derived data. And another big amount is going to application, but in this case you see the bigger amount went to company that use let me say marginally the space data, like the first three, GoPoof, Bolt, and Rappi, are a riding company or food delivery company which use navigation information to give an added value. Cow Mobility is a Paris-based service car, so using green, let's say, green technology. So just to say that when we talk about application and downstream, there are different aspects to look after. I mean, these companies which get actually serious H and G, so higher amount of money, has to be considered not anymore startups, more stable and commercial companies. So next one. This is just to give you the picture we see from Italian Space Agency. I'd like to introduce the next speaker just to leave in some point of discussion for the overall session. If you could, all the speakers, give some advice on these points. For example, does the actual dynamic of cost and goods and service and the price lever of the service will support sustainable profits for this venture, for example? Another point is that venture capitalists want to see more liquidity in the sector. So this investment could produce exit and get back new bigger investment for the company for their growth, which is the situation. Another point to be discussed is the increasingly importance in startup space investment is the enabling role of the government with direct funds in early investing funds or even stamp of approval. Another point is how the European can increase the capacity of funds and be more attractive for space startups. And the last thing, if it's possible to identify, to make a sort of SWOT analysis, or to identify the stronger point, the weakness, and the opportunity and threats for the space finance ecosystem, both in Europe and in the US. So I want to stop my presentation here and just introduce the first speaker, which is Geraldine Naja, which is now since, I guess, the 1st of November, so it's very fresh, the Director of Commercialization, Industry and Procurement at the European Space Agency. She's looking after all this stuff, and she's trying to build up a new strategy, I guess, for the European Space Agency. So I want to leave the floor to her for her presentation.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mauro. And it's a pleasure to be with you this morning and to participate in this last session of NSE 2021. I also want to thank Professor Battiston for inviting me. So it's my pleasure to be with you. And I must say, Mauro, you have already well introduced the subject, and we can go directly to my presentation. I'm not sure I can answer all your questions, but I'm sure I will address many of them. So if I could have my slides, thank you. Perhaps we can go to the next slide. So as you have said, Mauro, it is indeed recent that I have become Director for Commercialization, Industry and Procurement. And actually, it is a new directorate. It is a new directorate, and I would say a new priority for ESA. Our Director General, Josef Aschbacher, whom you well know and who was presenting also, I think, on yesterday in your conference, has put together his agenda for ESA, Agenda 25, defining 5 priorities, and one of which is clearly commercialization. So we can go to the next slide. And perhaps wondering, why has commercialization become such an issue in space, worldwide, and in Europe? I think it is clear if we read the news or if we look at what's happening in space worldwide, the so-called new space movement is now a key feature, and I think it's the big thing in space these days. You mentioned the level of investment by these companies. If we look also at the revenues of space, and in particular the commercial revenues, it is clear also that the large majority of commercial revenues in 2020 comes from satellite services in space. But of course, it doesn't mean that the upstream sector, as you said, the satellite and launch manufacturing, is not essential. It is actually the enabler for these commercial revenues in application. But let's not forget that the revenues come mostly from what we call the downstream. Now let's go to the next slide. So we keep in mind the big figure of some 300 billion revenues for space in 2020. And by the way, this is estimated that this could triple by the end of the decade and reach 1 trillion. Now, if we look at the actual space activity in 2020, here the picture is even more striking in terms of commercialization. If we look at the number of launches in 2020 and the number of satellites launched in 2020, you would see that the big majority of the satellites launched are actually small satellites and private satellites, because they are, for 65% of them, Starlink satellites. And the next ones, in terms of number, are OneWeb. This is really a new feature for space in Europe and worldwide, that the majority of satellites launched are not public, governmental, institutional satellites, they are private satellites. And this is really something we have to take into account. Nowadays, the space sector is, let's say, still a public, but has become largely a private endeavor. It is now really a public and private sector at the same time. Now, how do we fare on this sector? I must say we can be proud of Europe, because in fact we have a relatively modest public space budget. We have about 15% of the worldwide public budgets for space. We have only 5% of the worldwide workforce for space, and yet we capture some 25-30% market share on space. And this is really an excellent success for Europe. I want also to note that since we have a relatively small domestic market, because we have a relatively modest public investment in space, we have to be competitive. So this is good. It means that our industry is obliged to fare very well on the commercial markets. And most of our launch and manufacturing activities are driven by commercial purposes. Let's go to the next slide. You have mentioned this already, Mauro, so I don't need to dwell on it. You have rightly shown the private investment in space worldwide in 2020 amounting to almost 7 billion euro, which is a little more than the ESA budget. So it shows that it becomes a substantial budget, this private investment in space. But as you have said, it has gone mostly to the big ones, SpaceX, OneWeb, Blue Origin, etc. And Europe has only captured 500 million euro private investment in space in 2020. So this is, of course, a much lower figure. But let's go to the next slide immediately, which gives me more details on the private space investment in Europe in 2020. And here you see some very good news, actually. First of all, you see that the value of deals has really grown with a step change. In 2019, we had a little less than 200 million euro private investment in space in Europe. 2020, 500 million. So it's a step increase. But the number of deals has not really changed, which means it's really the value of deals that has grown, because our startups have become more mature and they are now in the next round of funding. This is good news. Second good news is 60% of the investment in European space in 2020 comes from European investors. So we start to see the development of a European investment ecosystem which is ready to invest in space. Excellent. Let's go to the next slide. Of course, it is still very challenging, and you said it, Mauro, it is still very challenging for investors to invest in space in Europe. In the US, there's no issue, as you have seen, but in Europe, investors are still a bit shy. First of all, there's a different approach to risk-taking. This is clear. Space is considered exotic. It's considered difficult. It's considered technologically challenging and risky. Investors hesitate. And it is clear that our startups, our newcomer companies, they suffer from this situation. And it is a problem because our industry, overall, our space industry, needs to benefit from this new space movement, this innovation, dynamism. So we must make sure that our industry can also have access to the private funding. Next slide, please. And the challenges are multiple for our startups and SMEs. We have actually interviewed a number of them. I see Luca Rossettini is in the panel. He has a hugely successful company, but some of them have not been as successful as him and have had difficulties having a fair access to the public contracts of our agencies. Having access to VC is a big difficulty for our European startups, in particular when they come to the scale-up round. As we said, in Europe, we still have this risk-avoiding culture. Also, sometimes there is the difficulty to access what we call IOD, IOV, in-orbit demonstration, in-orbit validation, because, of course, the startups, the SMEs, they need to demonstrate their product, their technology in orbit. So these are the areas on which we have to act. Next slide, please. And then we also asked all these startups, these SMEs that we have interviewed, what should be the role of ESA in new space in Europe? First of all, we must be faster. We must be able to generate quickly end-to-end projects. And indeed, being a first buyer or an anchor tenant customer could be a very good sign for these startups. And I liked very much, Mauro, what you said about the stamp. This is very important. Giving a contract to a startup, to an SME, gives the ESA stamp. And they can leverage on this stamp. They can go to the bank, they can go to a VC, they can invest on the baseline of this stamp. Of course, ESA has to adapt itself, has to improve itself. We have to be a little bit less bureaucratic, more responsive. We have to have adapted processes to be able to work with our startups. Next slide, please. So, yes, we have put together a commercialization department and a commercialization vision, shall we say, for ESA. Of course, as you know, ESA already had a number of initiatives in commercialization. It was the network of the business incubator systems, the business incubation centers. I recently had the pleasure to inaugurate one in Torino. We have, of course, the downstream gateway. We had the SME office. We had the very successful PhilLab in Esprin, focused on Earth observation. So we have a number of initiatives at ESA. The goal we have is to federate them, to make sure that we have synergies among these different initiatives, because the ambition that we have is that Europe must boost private investment in space. We want to triple these investments by 2025. We want to have a real, very strong network of sustainable and commercially viable startups in all domains of space. This is our ambition. What we can say as well, we want to work, of course, with national agencies, among them in the first rank ASI, the European Commission, with the Cassini initiative, because altogether, I believe that we can enable the further development of a new space ecosystem in Europe. That's what we need. We need to stimulate new space in Europe, and we can only do that all together. Next slide, please. And for that, we will work on 3 lines of action: speed, capital, and talent. And I think we can go directly to the next slides, where these 3 lines are a little bit more explained in detail. Talent, we want to invest in talent. That's investing in brains, investing in innovation, and encouraging cross-discipline, multi-domain activities, because this is usually where innovation happens. As I mentioned, consolidate the big network, but also build on the PhilLab and create a PhilLab network across Europe. We want also to protect our inventions. there is let's say in the new commercialization department, we have also a patents office, and which looks at intellectual property aspects, which are essential when we look at the new space. Capital. Yes, a big issue is access to capital. So we must set up partnerships. You mentioned Primo Space. We also have a partnership with Primo Space. We want to have partnerships with many financing entities. For instance, the EIB, the EIF, the European Investment Fund. We will soon, very soon, have a partnership with the European Investment Fund. And also, I would like that we can develop a network of European accelerators next to the incubators. And speed, I insist on this word because it will be, in my view, the most challenging one. We must be quicker. Speed is of the essence for new space. A startup I was discussing with recently said to me, I don't need a contract from you in 6 months. I need it this month because in 6 months I might be dead. Yes, we have to be more responsive. We have to review the ways we work and adapt them and transform them. And next slide. So this is how we will work. And in the next months, and I certainly look forward to working with many of you who are there today, we want to continue and consolidate our existing activities. We want to set up strong partnerships with all our program directorates, because this is also a new feature that we see. Commercialization occurs in all sectors of space. There used to be a time when commercial space was about launchers or SATCOMs. Now it is about Earth observation, in-orbit services, operations. It is about exploration. I see the development of commercial initiatives for LEO and moon exploration, and this is fascinating. So we have to work hand in hand with all our program directorates to support the expansion of their activities and their focus on commercialization. We will initiate new activities and new partnerships. I mentioned that already. Partnership with funding entities, network of accelerators, support the creation of new markets, anchor tenancy contracts where we can set them. And really, the goal is to bridge the gap from ID and even from proof of concept to a fully marketable product, because this is the difficulty. And finally, last but not least, we will work internally with our teams, procurement, industrial policy, to elaborate these new processes. So you see, we have quite a heavy agenda for 2022. In 2022, we have many rendezvous for space in Europe, starting with the Space Summit, but also the Ministerial Council of ESA, end of 22. At the Ministerial Council, we will propose a commercialization initiative called Scale Up. So it will be a busy year for us, but I very much look forward to working on that with all of you. Thank you.
Hey, thanks, Geraldine. Very impressive your presentation. You also stayed into the time limit, so thanks to you. You said many interesting things. I wrote two or three. For example, the government stamp on the private initiative. Yes, we saw at the Italian Space Agency when we were supporting Primo Miglio going to the investor to try to get money. I mean, the agency stamp has a value. Second things, you said another interesting point, the scaling up. Just yesterday, I was in Milan with other guy also here for an event of Primo Space, and an investor approached me and said me, do you think we have the opportunity to scaling up the company that we are investing, which are, the instrument now available? So this is a very important issue that we and you as ESA, we have to consider to work. Which is your vision in 1 minute, about this scaling up activity?
Scaling up, I think we can support the identification of the very promising startups, and in particular those that may have an interest for our activities. And then we want to set up the partnership with the investment funds, the investors, the VC, etc. So my view is we can serve as let's say, the link between the very promising startups that, for instance, we incubate in the BIC or that we find in the PhilLab, and make the link with the investors.
Okay. Thanks, Geraldine. Really, really interesting. I want to move to the next speaker, and which is Marco Ferrazzani. Actually, we are going to make a change because I think it's interesting to listen always on the ISA level, which are the legal aspect related to these finance activities for the new space economy. So Marco Ferrazzani is head of the legal office of ISA and is a lot of experience on this field. So I want to leave the floor to him just to listen what ISA can do and which are the bigger, points to help this space economy world to grow up. Please.
Thank you very much, Mauro, and good morning to all. Actually, I was lucky this morning because I had my colleague Geraldine, our new director, to introduce the main policy and the tools of ISA. So it's very good. She has said very well all of it. What remains to me is to explain from a legal point of view what are the fundamental ingredients, what I call the legal and financial ingredients for a new space economy. So I will be more general, speaking of Europe and the conditions for this to happen. We all know, it was said, the space activities are complex, expensive, numerous, and they're out of sight of the general public, even of the general finance world, because they're very risky, they're little known. From a technical point of view, and this is the heritage and the culture of space agency and space industry, we know well, we need to do quality and guarantee a safety and quality of the products and of the operations. But to make something happen, we call space economy, which to me means, in a legal definition, a market of many entrants. We have achieved the step of engineering solution, technical quality, but we have now to go to the finance conditions and use the law, use the law as a tool to make a market happen. And this is something fundamental, interesting that has to happen, especially in Europe. One of the fundamental first ingredient, in my view, that we have to realize, and we have it now, but we have to preserve, is to invest in cooperation to create a market. And I will explain what I mean. That's a fundamental point. Invest in cooperation means maintaining the essential conditions so that entrants, new entrants, incumbents, they all have a chance, which means a potential possibility, both from the financial and legal point of view, to be in the market. And this means that from the public side first, we have to guarantee what I call access to space, equal condition of accessing to space, which means, of course, the technical and the fundamental means to go to space, but also the access to technology for them to be used to go to space, and then the actual operations, utilization in outer space. In legal words, it means having the so-called safe and sustainable use of outer space, maintaining the conditions of operations, which are undisturbed, be able to use the orbits, be able to use operation, be able to use the technology, which, coming from a public, even defense program, is many times comes with conditions, or even strong limitation because of ESPO control or proprietary rights. So this is fundamentally, even before speaking about market, this is fundamentally conditions and ingredients for any ecosystem. If you look at space, but even beyond space, there can be a market, an economy, only if every entrance is able to use these tools, is able to access a market which is fair. This means regulating a market in reality. There are many other ecosystems, I will mention some, that exist, and they heavily rely on regulation, not to limit, but to enable the various economic actors to enter, and also to play among them on fair condition, on what's called in jargon the level playing field. So fundamental point number one, invest in cooperation among all of us. And this is what the public side has been doing since years. Of course, with some tendency, with the temptations to influence some conditions to favor their own side. This is legitimate. Some governments or some areas want to favor, protect, or promote. This will happen more and more. The more I see your data and the columns and the amount, the more there will be appetite for some sides, regulators, I mean, to favor some parts, favor your own entrance, favor your own market, or in a way, condition the market that goes a certain way. And this is a way, it's already happening when you see in your slides the big actors of space economy. They were able to start fast and become big because they have favorable conditions, including regulatory conditions in the market or in the entrance. It's not just subsidies, it's really regulatory licensing and condition for accessing to space, for use of space, and for use of technologies, either in-house or technology that come from other areas. Now, once we have understood it well, investing cooperation, which is of course includes also, as I said, the use of space operations, like going into space and be able to have a safe environment. And I don't need to explain to you, professional, what it means, safe environment of space operations, which includes manage the traffic in outer space. Then we can say we invest in cooperation, and then we allow for competition. Competition, of course, is good. It stimulates. It allows many actors to enter and some to prevail over others. We also have to accept that competition produces winners and losers. But my message to the investor community is competition will only be possible if there is a guarantee that cooperation ensures a fair access and a fair use of outer space. I take the example of telecommunication, ground telecommunication in Europe. We have had a vague and a history of national operators, the incumbents, which were each of them were in national monopoly until the 90s. A history of so-called privatization or deregulation happened in the 90s and 0 years, 2000. And what do we have now? We have a lot of operators in ground systems. Just in telephony or mobile, we have more than 40 operators in telecommunication in Europe. Whereas in a comparable market, take another region like North America, they're not 40, they're just 3 or 4, just to give you an example. So there's a lot of competition, but among them, they're all heavily burdened with debt. They are heavily indebted, and they make a certain level of profit. In space, we have exactly the opposite. We have, so far, few entrants. They are growing. There is a certain margin of profit, but there is little debt. In a way, I would see that a European space economy, we have to cope and live out of debt. In other words, allow companies to raise capital means make them in a debt situation and live with that. Actually, these are conditions of a market. So if you see that as an evolution, it's really a change of parameters for economic operators and entrants. So we have to move away. In addition, not away, government action and space programs that they need to remain and guarantee the basis, I would say the bedrock of technical capabilities and, as I said, use of technology and space. So move from, of course, the prestige would remain of science and technology to the new drivers of economy. As Geraldine Naja explained, shorter turnaround times and helping the public funding to meet the private funding in a way that also means accepting from the public side, agencies like us, the industry or operators will become the leader of many initiatives, and accepting, it's a matter of mentality and approach, accepting that the private operators, although they're younger and may look less experienced in technology, they become the leaders of certain initiatives, or certain market segments. This is what for me means moving from old space to new space. Diversification of activity, multiplication of entrants, and a lot of flexibility on both sides. And in all this, of course, neither space nor the regulation of space, which is what we do, is any more static. We have to get to learn and come to terms to a market which will change and will continue to change and is not static. So also there's a change of approach and mentality from the space professional that we have been in the last 30 or 40 years, that we have to prepare for a future that keeps changing. The development will come from incremental innovation. So innovations that will come in waves, that will come in time. And also the regulatory level, law, space law, what we call national law, national licensing, national technical regulations that exist and will continue to grow, will have to be used to come to incremental innovation. It's what I call incremental regulation. In other words, regulate only as much as necessary for every wave of innovation. We have in Europe especially, many countries, not even all, member states of ESA, that have national laws that provide for the so-called regime of authorization, supervision, licensing before going to a mission to space, or licensing some kind of use operation frequencies, sometimes even export control among countries. We have to take a fresh look to all this in a more horizontal way. That's what we do from the legal service of ESA. First of all, know the national space law of different countries, have a comparative view with the national space law of outside of Europe, and stimulate member states of ESA, the national space offices, to look at that, to look at how space law and regulation will have to move, no more static, be used to becoming more adaptive and more accepting the idea of incremental space regulation in waves. And that's the second fundamental message, to accept that. It will, and again, it's along with so-called investing in cooperation, is a fundamental conditions for the European space economy to happen and to be in waves. Maybe that's a message that I say from the legal point of view that should be taken, and that's why I'm happy to intervene today in the finance community, for them to be more aware and even to make the point to the government level, to the financing community, that only if these ingredients are right, the economy can develop. But this, again, not in the interest of the public side that likes to regulate, but it is the self-interest of the investors in space, that space is safe, is sustainable, is open to use, there's a guaranteed access to space in terms of going and using it, and that the regulatory conditions are appropriate, I would say, in what I call incremental legislative action. So I will conclude on this point, that law is not just there to justify or to set condition. Law is to be used as a tool to enable and to accompany the proper development of a new space economy. This happened for almost all sectorial markets I would know. If you ask an economist or a business lawyer, any market has its own environment, and the environment is made of the appropriate regulation, sufficient regulation, but just the necessary regulations to develop, and that regulation will develop and over time. I've been very brief, and I'm open to any question, of course. Thank you.
Okay, Marco, many thanks also to you to respect the time. Yes, I have a question for you. I mean, how do you see, the relation between the public, institution like the ESA toward the risks associated with the financing of the new space economy? I mean, in respect, at the beginning of the phase on investment and technology, this can be unacceptable. How, far can go the public financing close to the commercial, and also to accepting risk which are, related with the, space venture in a more mature phase? If you have a view on this in 1 minute.
In 1 minute, I say, so far is the public side who took all the risk for all technology, new generations of satellites, launchers. All the risk was taken by the public side. And then on the base of that, the private operators were able to come up with their services and new products. Economy means that the risks are shared, are taken by those who want to make profit. And so it's a matter of how to have a transition into a market environment where the risks are appreciated, are decided and taken by the investor. But before coming to that end state, the transition is that progressively, and through regulation also, the risk will be maintained on the public side and progressively taken up dose by dose by the private investor. So it will not be an immediate, say, from next year, only those who take the risk can enter the market. It will be a mixed situation where the risks are going to be shared. And that's the tricky part. That's the most difficult part, how to progressively set, say, which are economic standards, of course, of sharing the risk between the public and the private, with progressively having them on the investor. It's not easy. It will take time. And that's what I call incremental economy, incremental regulation. Exactly that. In a way, you can look at the regulation as a sort of indicator of where the risk lies in every new wave. This happened in the telecom market in the last 40 years. And that's what I suggest to look at. And we regulators, public side, we have to be ready to have that approach, to say, okay, don't say either it's public and they take all the risk, or else it's private and then you, investor, you take all the risk. I don't want to know about that. We have to be able to be mature and help the transition.
Okay. Thanks, Marco. Very interesting intervention, and this closes the overall ESA presentation. I mean, we have very important information about their approach. I want to move to the next speaker, which is, let's say, so, which is Sébastien Moranta, which, let's go. Sébastien is a research manager of the European Space Policy Institute in Vienna, which is an independent and public think tank, which all of us read the reports. So we know how important is your job. And I want to leave the floor to you to give us your vision about the finance aspect related to the new space economy. Please, Sébastien.
Thank you, Mauro. Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. Always good to start by hearing that our reports are read and useful. I saw that Geraldine shared a few of our statistics already, so this is excellent. So what I wanted to share with you this morning is actually some elements regarding the views of ESPI as a think tank on new space in Europe that we publish through our, sorry, I'm trying to find a way to share my screen. Yes, okay. All right, I believe you can see the slides. Okay, so I wanted to share with you some elements regarding ESPI views on new space. Of course, as a think tank, new space is something that we closely look at, and in particular, we've been quite active in looking at investment and entrepreneurship trends in Europe, and I have a few messages I wanted to share with you. So before starting, maybe a few words on the way we see new space. We hear often, people speaking about new space actors, non-new space actors. I think it's not necessarily the good way to look at the thing. The way we look at it is really new space as an ensemble of trends that are transforming, changing the way the space sector works, the rules of the space sector. There are a number of them. I think it's important to note that it starts really with the public sector, the new approach of the public sector, the new strategies with regards to the development of the space sector. And then it follows with a number of new entrants, new industrial setup, new solutions, new markets, new private investment. Quite a number of things happening and that really work together in the transformation of the space sector that we see today. There are two ones that I would like to dig into a bit more today, which is the trends related to private investments and the trends related to new entrants. When we started looking for the first time at new space and trying to build our own definition and our own views on new space, we tried to find some statistics, some insights on what was happening in Europe. There's a lot of things on what's happening in the US, but very little at the time on what was going on in Europe. And so what we wanted to do was to try to get some insights on the level of investment, on the entrepreneurship trends that were emerging in the European sector. And so we built this database to try to, as many colleagues do try to get our own statistics on exactly the level of investment, on the level of investment in Europe. And Geraldine already shared some of the statistics. I'm happy to share already partial results for 2021, which are very promising. So as you can see, there has really been a quick and massive growth of the level of investment in Europe. Only a few years ago, we were talking about a few tens of million euros. Now we're talking about several hundreds. And this is not including OneWeb. OneWeb is quite a challenge from a methodological standpoint on whether it is still a startup or not. Mauro, you mentioned the point a bit before. And so this massive growth, I think it's important to recall that it really concerns a number of success stories. And I think it's important to note that we do have already some quite interesting success stories in Europe. But the investment, the way we see it, is really widespread across Europe. So the trend is really not affecting only a few countries, but really quite a big share of European countries, even though, of course, there are a number of top countries where the activity and the investment is a bit more considerable, including the United Kingdom, France, Germany, Finland, Luxembourg, Switzerland, and some others. Now, how do these statistics, so these hundreds of millions, compare to the multi-billion dollars of investment that are reported? So how does Europe stand in the global context? And on this, I would like to follow up on what you rightfully said at the very beginning, Mauro. What we see is that a vast majority of the investment that is reported every year actually concerns a few companies that are extremely successful, and I think it's important to note this and to take stock of it, but that do not necessarily represent what we are trying to see emerging, or that are not necessarily representing this entrepreneurship trend anymore. You were mentioning SpaceX. SpaceX, can we still say that SpaceX is a startup when the company has close to 10,000 employees, is valued close to $100 billion, and is already and has already been quite successful and quite active for many years. The second big one, the second company in this big four is Blue Origin, of course. But again, in this case, I am not sure that the investment in Blue Origin is really representative of what we're trying to see emerging in Europe, as it's mostly about seed money from Jeff Bezos that every year finances his company. OneWeb, the question I think is going to be asked very differently in the future, as now OneWeb is really a European company. Even though most of the activities are still taking place on US soil, this is something that I think is poised to develop in the future. And Virgin Galactic, we can raise the question on really the impact of the business of Virgin Galactic with regards to space tourism on the classic space sector and space value chain. So 70% of these billions might not be necessarily representative of the trends that we're trying to see emerge in Europe. Now, if we compare the level of investment in Europe with regards to the USA, so there are two graphs here to try to compare in terms of ratio. Of course, I draw your attention to the fact that the scale is not the same. On one side, the US budget is more than $50 billion, while Europe is a bit more than $10 billion. So in light blue, you see the level of public budgets. As compared to, in dark blue, the level of investment. So if you look at the USA, you see that there is about 8% of the public budget that is complemented by private investment. But if you exclude the big four that are not necessarily representative, as I said, of what we're trying to see emerging, or at least in another step of development, it reduces to 1.6%. Now, when we look at Europe, in 2019, we were at already 1.9%. And I must draw the attention on the fact that the perimeter of the investment that we're looking into is really quite narrow in comparison to the others. So it's 1.9% as a conservative estimate. And in 2020, this raised to 4.2%. In 2021, we don't have already the budget, but the budget is rather flat over the years, or does not increase as much as investment. It's going to likely reach at least 6 to 7%. So this is something to say that Europe is actually doing quite well. To wrap up, if I may share a few key messages. So the first one is, of course, we do observe a massive growth of investment in European space startups, 50 million euros in 2014, 500 million in 2020, at least 800 million in 2021, and the growth has been really massive. It's highly concentrated in a few success stories, which raise the question of what we are trying to aim in Europe. Do we want to see the emergence of a European unicorn, some kind of major European champion able to compete with SpaceX, for example, which is something we hear very often? Or considering the specific landscape of Europe, are we more considering the emergence of a number of successful success stories, multiple battle horses, well embedded within their own national and, of course, European industrial landscape? Maybe one also message I wanted to convey is that investment is still very low in comparison to public budgets. And I think it's very important to consider it as a great complement to public budgets, but certainly not as a replacement of public budget. So it is very important that we do not try, or we do not see private investment as a way to replace public effort in supporting the space sector. And last message, I think is quite important, is Europe is doing fine. We do have all a bit of a European complex, and I think it's important to tell ourselves that actually Europe is doing good, and we need to focus on new challenges. Now, what are these new challenges? Maybe a few elements. So we start every year a survey toward European space startups. And we try to ask them a number of questions regarding their views on the business, their expectations, and I would like to share just 2 points with regards to what startups told us through this survey. The first one regarding the relationship between entrepreneurs and investment. How are startups financed? Well, first and foremost, through their own private savings and through internal financing. Governmental subsidies, venture capital, and other private investment mechanism, or not always the first way to finance startups. Even though, of course, some of the most successful ones do manage to get massive funding through these means. And when we ask them about which funding they are seeking and which funding they are going to get, there are actually 3 types of fundings that stand out. The first one is internal financing. So startups are not funded only through investment. They are also funded and seek to be funded through their own business and through the sales of their product. And I think it's also very important to raise this. Now, the second point is the mix between public and private investment. Ultimately, startups tell us that what they are looking for in terms of investment is really a mix of governmental subsidies and of venture capital money, both working together. They do share, of course, a few challenges. I saw already in the slides of Geraldine that she shared this table. So they do have quite a number of challenges that I'm sure the public sector can support with, in particular with regards to reaching out to potential investors, burden and delays. Geraldine was saying that it's important for the public sector to speed up, and I think this is not only true for the public sector. Now, this has been a thread of discussion already from startup to scale up, because actually, so as we see and as the new space ecosystem in Europe is developing, the startups of yesterday are becoming the companies of today and of tomorrow. And on this, the public sector has quite a big role to play, and not only on the support to financing. When we asked startups what they believe is their core challenge, actually raising capital comes as in the 5th position. Before that, startups want to grow their revenues, acquire customers, manage their cash flow, develop their product, and only after raise capital. And when we ask them what is their highest expectations with regards to the public sector, what they tell us is that they want demand. They want public demand on their markets. They want public institutions to act as anchor customer and to support them on this. So I believe this echoes quite well the views that Isa shared before. So to wrap up, with regards to the challenges of tomorrow, we will need to build an ecosystem that builds on a mix of private investment and public subsidies. And this raises a number of questions regarding synergies. Synergies between institutional and commercial objectives, which are not always aligned, actually rarely aligned very often, and synergies between public and private investments. And there is really a need to work hand in hand here. And I do believe that, for example, the work that is being done on the question of the future secure connectivity mega constellation is going to prove likely as there will be a lot of lessons to be learned from the way we're going to handle this specific project that is necessarily going to build on both public and private strength. The second one is Europe startups, but Europe startups for what? Well, to address European markets. And on this, it's very important that we see the emergence of public demand to serve public policies. I think this is public sector is very, very proactive and very good at making an offer emerge, in supporting the emergence of an offer. But I think that in the future, maybe a big part of the work has to be also allocated to making sure that we see also the emergence of a public demand. So these are the few messages I wanted to convey with us to you. For those who are interested, I'm sorry, I need to do a bit of advertisement. All this comes from our Space Venture Europe report. We're currently working on the next edition that we plan to publish in March 2022, and that is a public report available on ESPI website. Thank you very much for your attention.
Sébastien, many thanks, and a very interesting, presentation. Like as we know, you are, unfortunately, sometimes when you come after some other speaker, you see your presentations slides. I took, and it's a signal that your reports and study are very well understood. So many thanks. I got actually two question, if you can answer in 2 minutes. The first one is how do you believe the trends could be in the future, what you say now? And other things that came from the speech that we heard as of now, do you see when we make analysis of the space economy evolution, we have to concentrate in specific cluster, taking out, the big guy like SpaceX or Blue Origin, and also taking out, as I show at the beginning of my presentation, companies that get money to do business very stable, very, commercial side, like the riding or food delivery company that rely very, just for a small portion of their business on the space. So maybe we have to find a way to concentrate in the specific cluster that can give us, a better instrument to understand how the policy could be implemented. So these are the two questions. Sorry to be long. So
with regards to the first one, in terms of the way I see the future, well, I think the presentation of Geraldine speaks by itself. There has been a lot of awareness raising in the public sector, and I think that agencies, and of course here in this case ESA, but also national agencies and the European Commission, are taking the matter very seriously and are very proactive in developing new instruments and new approach to integrate these new trends in their way of working. And I really want to trust that many of these new instruments are going to support the future development of the new space ecosystem in Europe. So a positive outlook, I would say. Now, with regards to the second question, of course, it's, you know, on our side, we try to, you know, provide a lot of information with just one figure, you know, and actually there is a lot behind just you know, one figure or one element, just the same as there is a lot behind new space. I think you're putting the finger on something that is quite important, which is that new space, a part of new space, is not space. A part of new space is very open to other sectors, and a big external factor, a big external force that also triggers the emergence of new space is the growing synergies between space solutions and the strategic development of other sectors. I'm thinking, for example, of automotive. Future autonomous vehicles will likely rely on space much more than they do today. And this is only one among many others. So, of course, addressing new space, stimulating new space, has to give some room to the consideration regarding other sectors and the way space is integrated in other sectors. Now, this, of course, is not easy, because many of the way the public sector is organized, it does not give a lot of room for you know, discussions outside of the space sector. But I also consider and hope that this is something that is supposed to develop.
Okay, thanks, Sébastien. Thanks for your presentation. And I would try to move to the next speakers. Actually, the next two speakers who will come from the startups world, let me say. So I want to call on the stage Luca Rossettini, which is the founder and CEO of the Orbit. No, is an example of the newborn space economy company. They are still on the growing phase. I don't know, Luca, you want to tell me if technically you are a startup. I don't know if you consider us startups anymore, but you have to tell us what you're feeling about. So I want to leave the stage to Luca to listen what he's had to do. I actually about also in the history of the Orbit, which was the role of finance, you know, helping you the growth and arriving where you are now and for the future. Please, Luca.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you for having me here. It's really a pleasure. And well, it's a bit hard to consider the Orbit a startup anymore. We are 160 people, and even if we are a young company with respect the like general majority of companies in the new space, we are definitely like a dinosaur. So we started in 2011 our adventure. And by the way, I'm very happy of the accomplishment that we have made so far, but we are still fighting a lot. So we are still on the front line to grow the business. So I would like to start telling you a couple of like historical moments of the Orbit that will lead the conversation towards the finance. So first of all, when I decided to start the Orbit, I didn't have any business knowledge. So I had two companies before, but basically I was an engineer selling to engineers, so very easy. So I went to Silicon Valley where I studied business there, and what I was really amazed by Silicon Valley is that it was so easy to talk about business and to create new business and to restart again. That I couldn't find this environment here. Anyway, so as soon as I arrived there, I said, okay, let's talk with these investors. I didn't know the existence of venture capital before getting there, and so I said, okay, so now I'm here. I know that there are people investing in companies like me at the very early stage. So let's go and talk to them. And the first meeting in Menlo Park with this investor, so I was in the meeting room, I was presenting my presentation, second slide, and then the guy picked up the phone and exited from the room. So I waited, right? And then after like 10 minutes, a lady came in and asked me to leave the room and said, no, I'm waiting for, I don't remember the name of the guy, John. I'm waiting for John. So no, the meeting is over. So I said, wow, these Americans are not really nice. So, but I didn't understand why, right? So the week after, I went out for dinner. Actually, I was buying dinner to Barton Lee. Barton Lee is like a professor at Stanford, but he's also a member of the Space Angels. So I said, wow, that's perfect. That's it, for sure. It will give me money, right? So we went out for dinner, and he said, yeah, your idea, it's interesting, but the way you want to implement it and the team is not really what I'm expecting. So let's talk about cell phone apps. So we were in an Italian restaurant in Palo Alto, so quite expensive, and I was paying to talk about something that I was not really interested at all. So that's how it started. So at the very beginning of my stay in Silicon Valley, so I had to start from scratch. Basically, I was waking up at 4 a.m. in the morning, going for breakfast with a group of entrepreneurs, like taking notes of what they were saying, problems they had, how they faced the growth, how they faced the team creation, and so on. And then I started from zero, and I tested the first business plan, sending it to a business plan competition. And even in that case, I was not even prepared. So I sent it to the RISE business plan competition. That is one of the biggest at worldwide level. Like the first prize is 1 million, so real cash. So it's not really, pat on the shoulder as it always happens here in Europe. It's real money that they were providing. And we arrived at the final, so we didn't win. So we won like $500, not even the money to pay for the flight. But it was really an amazing experience, and we learned a lot. So we went back to Europe to create the orbit, and that's where the difficulties really started. So we were aware of the difficulties of finding money, but we were not expecting like such a difference in mentality. So it took really a lot. We had an initial seed investment idea of 5 million. And at the end, after several conversations with many investors, we were able to raise 300,000 euro. So slightly different from what we were expecting. But at that point, we have to take a decision. So to say, I put in more than 400,000 of my own money from the previous 2 companies. And I say, okay, either we do it now or we don't do it anymore because the market is coming. And that's how we started. So we started in one, not paid. We could hire only very young engineers, and that's an important aspect that I will talk later about. And it was really hard. So when you talk about science fiction, then you are not credible, especially if you are a small company. And that's one of the. And I want to start with the problems and then go into the solutions and advantages of being in Europe. So the mentality. So here in Europe, pretty much like everywhere in Europe, I have to say, if you are small, then the institutions thinks that you can't make it. And that's really something that you don't find in US and not even in UK, I have to say. And another aspect is that if you have a very good project, and if you are a large company operating in space and you ask for 1 billion, then it's okay. You can get the money. But if you are a small company operating in space and you ask for 10 million, then it's even too much, right? Just to give a concrete idea, in UK, when we started a company 1 year and a half ago, so like less than 2 years ago, we started a company with 1 person, and now we have 15 people there, and we signed more than £6 million in contracts. And in the, let's say, in the other locations in Europe, in Italy and in Portugal, in 10 years, we signed with local money, so I'm excluding ESA in this moment, we signed 35,000 euro. So you see the difference, and that's really a mentality, right? So they said, okay, you have a good idea, why not? Let's see if you're able to accomplish that. The other aspect that I think we need to work on that is really impacting the financial capabilities of the company in Europe is the short-term view. So, and that's from investors typically, right? So here in Europe, when you negotiate with investors, they tend to take a lot of shares of the company because they want to maximize their value today. But actually, an investor should focus on the long term. And if you take too many shares today, then you limit the capability of the company to raise more money in the future. And you know that the company is going to raise more money in the future. And that's also the second impact is on the valuation of the company. So we are used to stick to very low valuation, but the concept of valuation, it's changing. So it's not anymore, I mean, it's also the, like, say the valuation of the company performance in the past, but it's becoming more and more also an indicator of the capability of the company to raise money. So if you have a low valuation, you cannot raise enough money to run your business. And that's an aspect that in US is very well understood. Of course, there are risks associated, but hey guys, here we are building the future. So if we are not willing to take risks, then what's the point of, you know, operating in this amazing market that is called new space, right? Also the other concept that is really changing in the new, let's say, in the high-tech business is that the consideration of profits from a different way. So, you know, I grew up in Italy, and Italy is full of companies that make a lot of profits, and they are typically family-owned. And that's clearly, and that's very clear why profits is important, because it's the wealth of those families running those business. But in a global market in which you have to compete at the global level, profits are becoming investment that you have to make to keep your competitiveness. So again, what is the value for shareholders? Well, yeah, if you reach a point in which you can only generate profits because you already done all your investments, definitely profits is a good value for shareholders. But the immediate value is the growth, delivering to your customers and increasing the value of the company. And that's where the shareholders see most of the value, where they can make like several multiples of their initial investment. And this is again is changing the concept that has implications. We need to change the way we evaluate those companies. The stock options, in some part of Europe, I have to say they are well used. In some others are still seen as a cost rather than an investment. But at the end of the day, it's only people that is able to create value. So I like to say that companies are made out of walls, machineries, and people, but walls and machineries do not make money, right? So you need people. And if you don't value the people, especially if you want to hire the best talent on the market, then you are not really investing into the company and into the growth of the company. So stock options is a valuable tool, and I think at the European level we should have a common practice and educate both investors and governments towards this instrument. If you feel part of the company, if you feel that you own a company, you will do whatever it takes to make sure that that company is going to be successful. And that's another typical aspect that it's always seen, and it's related to people, and that I decide not to bring back to Italy and to Europe when we created the company. It's related to people. So in Silicon Valley there are two says. One is at the end of every year, fire 20% of your employees, so you can keep the best, right? Well, first of all, in Europe, it's not so easy to fire people. Definitely not easy, even the low performers. But let's say, in any case, I don't think this is a very good idea, because if you fire 20% of people, then you create a competitive environment inside your company. And that's really not what you want. You want a team. You want people that help each other. You want people that actually commit and are like and feel safe in the company. And that's definitely something that we need to value, and we need to have instruments in order to make sure that is done. The second say is fail fast. And I completely understand why they say that, right? So fail fast so you can start again with more experience and so on. But in many cases, especially in Silicon Valley, it's so easy to give up, because in any case you can start again and find more money and move on, right? So I think in Europe we are way more resilient, and we don't give up, and that's I think an advantage. Anyway, coming back to financial instruments, so for startups, most of the financial instruments available are not suitable for companies that are still investing a lot of cash. So that means they are losing money. Okay, so most of the financial instruments are not available. Another aspect, grants are always welcome. It's good money, but from an investor perspective, at least some of the investors, they don't consider grants as a like track record for like proving that the business is growing. So it's good for saving money, saving costs, but not to show performance. So even these need to be changed in something different. The typical reporting, I'm talking about European Commission grants, the reporting at the end is really killing the SMEs. And that's why most of the SMEs are not applying anymore to this type of grants. Even at the local nations with the space agency, you have to go through a very hard and like heavy reporting at the end. And there's, as was said at the beginning, too much time from like applying for a tender and the time that you can get the money. So we apply for like a local tender on small satellites here in Italy way before the summer, and we are still waiting. So that's really dedicated for the new space, and it's already 6 months. That as Geraldine was saying before, I mean, we are fine. As the orbit, we are a little bit bigger, but there are many companies that are applying that they don't know if they can reach the end of the year. So, and that's are all aspects that I think we need to work on. What are the advantages that we have here in Europe? Well, first of all, the institutions, and I think Geraldine clarified very well before, and all the other speakers, Marco and Sébastien, institutions are already moving towards a new set of procurement policies, more on, let's say, if you want, NASA style. So what companies need, they know that they can deliver. Just pay me if I deliver. And then what they need is anchor customer. So I have a new technology, and buy my technology, of course, if you need it, right? And in this way, I can go to private investors. And so you look, I have a contract, I have traction, and now I can move into the commercial market. The aspect is resiliency. We have raised in the first part of our, let's say, up to 2020, we raised only 20 million euro, and that we used to run 5 missions of, and the last 3 with more than 300 kilo satellites able to deploy more than 60 payloads in orbit with 20 million. When I speak to US investors, they don't believe that. They say that I'm telling them bullshits. Okay, so that's the power that we have in Europe. We are very, very efficient. Of course, we need to be careful, because 20 million, you focus on the business, but then you need to fill the gaps that are there. People flexibility, that's what we have in Europe. Engineers are capable of doing multiple stuff, and when you start a company, you really want to have a flexible team. In US, you need to start with like 20, 50 engineers at the beginning, and that's really impacting your burn rate. We have a lot of technical capabilities, so we have nothing to fear about technical capabilities. I think we are among the best in the world, and those people is mainly impact driven rather than salary driven, as you can find in Silicon Valley, right? So of course, salary is a very important piece, and this should be more equal across Europe. Not an easy topic, I know, but definitely people here in Europe want to have an impact, and that's very important. And the value of stock options again is very important. So these are overall the aspects that I can tell based on my experience and let's say the impact that I had with investors and the financial institutions in Europe.
Thanks, Luca. You gave a lot of messages, a lot of important information. Also, thanks to be also honest and clear. You put a couple of fingers in our eyes as agencies together. So, but we know we need to work. This is one of the problems that we encounter. So we need to work on that. So really thank for your comments. Also, I pick up a couple of things. You put right way the problem on the evaluation of the companies. And I guess it's also related to what you say. You were talking about maybe one of the problems we have in Europe, the difference in the US is the right approach for the investor, the private investor, toward the risks. Sometimes it seems like they are against the risk also as investor, which is a countersense, you know. So you should invest in the risk in the space, but you try to reason like a bank. So more or less, you are approaching more or less on the bank side instead of the venture capital investor side, you know. So you want to have some, you know, reassurance about what you are investing. I want just to ask you one thing, which I guess you can give in 1 minute. So which has the main messages you can pass to your younger fellow startupper, you know? So you are ahead of your process. So yesterday also you saw a lot of new startupper. Which are the key messages you can pass to them in order to help?
Yeah, so today the market, of course, offer more opportunities in terms of investment, but there is also more competition. So make sure that you focus immediately on your customers, fly as soon as possible, because that's the validation. The orbit always asks to our suppliers, have you flown already, right? So and don't give up. Don't give up. You are in Europe. You have plenty of possibilities. Don't see Silicon Valley as the only hub in which you can raise the money. You can find money here, and you have a lot of expertise that are coming even like cheaper than US. So don't give up and move on.
Thanks, Luca, for your words. Very interesting. We go ahead with the next one. Actually, it's another startup, I guess, in a little bit earlier. And then Luca, we are calling Lorenzo Feruglio, which is the CEO of AIKO. Good morning, Lorenzo. Welcome to the NSE Finance session. Lorenzo is a founder and CEO of AIKO, which is a deep tech company specialized in development of artificial intelligence and automation technologies applied to the space. So, Lorenzo, it's up to you. What do you think about all the things that you listen from Luca, and tell us your experience on the. Actually, you are a startup, okay? So we can concur on this.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. And can you hear me well? Hope you can hear me well. I completely have to say that the speech that Luca gave just earlier completely resonates with what I believe should be the philosophy behind the growth of a space startup in Europe, well, in general in the world. And today I would like to share my perspective on the idea, the vision behind creating a startup which is purely resembling a deep tech startup, as much as we see deep tech startup all around the world, especially in US and UK. So my intervention today will really focus on what is a deep tech startup, what is the difference with respect to more traditional startups, and how we can make sure we can create a deep tech startup in Europe, in space, and which steps we had to go through as AIKO, and we will be going through as AIKO to ensure the success of the company. So let's start with what is a deep tech company. Deep tech company, it really means that it is a company that is trying to solve a very complex, very deep problem, which has enormous applications in the future, But these applications in the future and the potential of these applications will be unraveled in a medium distant future. It's not a problem that has a solution in let's say in 1 year, for example, and the potential of this solution has the capability to have a great impact in, let's say, a time frame that could be 5 to 10 years. So we're talking about even probably more, depending on the topic, on the vertical. Medical startups, for example, and space startups could be also other types of startups, could have an impact in a time frame which is 10 to 20 years. So as you can imagine, this sort of premise on the let's say delivery of the value of the startup changes quite dramatically the relationship with investors, the relationship with all the key actors and partners we have to establish when creating a startup. And this is let's say this is one of the philosophy behind what is AIKO doing and the reason why AIKO is growing. So let me introduce to you what AIKO is doing. AIKO is indeed a deep tech company working on artificial intelligence. But what we're trying to do is something that, to explain, should be really simple. So what we're trying to do is to make operations of space operations, so the operations of a space mission, becoming a commodity. So we saw through the past 30, 20, 10 years that everything in the ecosystem of space is becoming or has already become a commodity, or is kind of in, let's say, getting closer to becoming a commodity. Launchers are becoming cheaper thanks to the amazing results of SpaceX and other companies. We're now able to launch to space in a very efficient way, and it will be even more in the future with all the companies, also European companies, developing rockets that are trying to achieve lower cost of the launch per mass. So launchers, let's say, are on the right path, becoming a commodity. What about building a spacecraft? Well, the new space ecosystem, all the commercial off-the-shelf components that we find, the databases online to purchase these items are really pushing towards the direction of commodity as well. Now, in 2021, it's way easier to build a satellite with respect to what it was 10 years ago, or even 20 and even more years ago. This is really evident, and in fact, there are private people that single-handedly built and launched a satellite in the last couple of years, and this really tell us the story of commodity that I was introducing. Let's jump a step. Well, the other idea would be, what about receiving the data? So ground station, ground segments, how do we use antennas to receive the data as well? This is also becoming a commodity. We see lots of interesting companies. One for all is a fellow startup in Italy, LeSpace. They're building ground station as a service, really distributed ground station to facilitate the reception of data and really to forget how we get the data from the spacecraft. Let's jump another step and go through the analysis of data. So downstream companies, these companies are working with the idea of simplifying the understanding of the data that we get from space. So data from space, very complex payload, is really something that is challenging to make use of. And in fact, this is probably one of the issues of the vertical of space at the moment, and that is very difficult to find concrete downstream applications for this data. But this is also changing. I mean, in the next 5 to 10 years, we will see more and more downstream applications that everybody will use on the ground, much similarly to what we have in our pockets with the navigation, with the GPS navigation. So what is the missing link here? Well, we believe that the missing link of commodities in space is the operations. So far, what is still really challenging is doing operations. Even though there are improvements on this direction by the numerous, let's say, products that we see that are trying to simplify at least some of the aspects of the management of operations. Well, we believe that AIKO can really have a great role in completely making operations a commodity. So the idea is that not only you want to forget how you will receive data from your satellite, but actually you want to forget that you have a satellite in the first time, and really make sure that your satellite is able to deliver the best that it can, given the equipment that it has, and really forget about all the management of the operations on the ground. To do this, AIKO is really trying to develop complex technology. We are investing in complex technology because we really want to lift the weight from the human operators on the ground in taking complex decisions, in analyzing complex data, predicting failures, anomalies, and so on. To do this, we are building a suite of products that are based on artificial intelligence and automation technologies that we will deploy on board the spacecraft and on ground in the Mission Control Center to really create this ecosystem of functionalities that will make operations as well a commodity in the future. So as you can see, this is something quite complex, and we're trying to achieve this goal with a long-term vision on the development of this ecosystem of products. But when you do a reality check on what is the ecosystem we're growing in, you find out, as Luca was really brilliantly saying, that first of all, we're in Europe, so we need to deal with Europe-based financial opportunities and tools that we need to deal with. No? So this brings a couple of drawbacks and a couple of positive points, in my opinion, here. Well, the first drawback that we see, and this was very clear probably in the mind of all the startups that I know of, and I'm sure Luca will share this and has already shared this point, is that access to capital is not that easy if you only have an idea and a brilliant team. This is not enough. This is not so simple in Europe to secure. Well, this is also changing. Maybe in the next couple of years, we saw quite some interesting efforts from venture capital funds that are really trying to, let's say, accelerate this adoption and this investment on space startups. But so far, and certainly this was the reality a couple of years ago when we started AIKO, was not so easy really to just go knock the door on investors, pitch them the idea, and get a decent round of investment to be able to at least demonstrate the idea. This was not possible. We had to really change the approach into getting these first steps. The reason why was that especially investors in space are not really a commodity even. So we need to really. This is also changing, but let's be reminded that in Europe we don't really have that much investment funds that invest in space. This is of course changing, but at the time it was not. And we're now trying to. And these investors even sometimes don't even clearly understand, for example, the implication of a space ecosystem, of a space market, and so on. So that there was a lot of education to be done in the past. But the point is that to grow a deep tech company in space in Europe, what we had to do was really to build background and heritage before asking for money. This was a key step that we had to figure out on how to do, because really we had to almost fly. Actually, we did demonstrate in orbit the technology before closing our seed round. And if you think about this, this is kind of reversed approach to what you could have in other domains or maybe in other parts of the world. And so the key results for us was that really to grow the vision of a operation becoming a commodity, of simplifying the way satellites are operated. We had to really start to prove the effects of our technology before really pushing for financing rounds and so on. So it's really a circle of positive effects that we had to build, and I'm sure all the startups in space are building, that goes from maybe securing a customer or securing a partner, doing a demonstration with them, gathering the feedback, and providing this feedback, hopefully positive feedback, to to potential investors, for example, or even to European tenders also. I mean, this is really similar. Europe and investors wants to see that the company has a track record and background before really pushing and committing to the company. So this is probably the first suggestion. Even if we have entrepreneurs that are listening today, this could be the first suggestion. Really try to build this positive circle of influence, going from maybe a prototype, customer interaction as soon as possible, as Luca was saying, gathering feedback, going to investor or to EU tenders or ESA tenders, get additional money maybe to complement this, let's say, this combination of funding for a startup. So to summarize the idea of, and I really resonate with what Luca was saying, the idea of growing something very complex in Europe is definitely possible. We need to change some vision and some concept behind how the support to this company is done. But the times are changing. The space economy is growing. It's projected to be growing even more than what was predicted a couple of years ago. And I'm sure the trend of assuming the risk and committing to a riskier investment from institutions and from the VC world will also be changing as well. So the idea, and this is what we are doing for AIKO, is really push for the stabilization and growth of your technology through customer validation and to demonstrations in orbit, fly the technology, and get all the feedbacks that you can, and then really make sure that you keep the consistent vision to really solve the long-term problem you're trying to solve, which is for AIKO the commoditization of space operation itself. This I think was my intervention. I think we can go if there are any questions or any comments. And I mean, just to recap, really, I'm sure there will be startups in Italy. I'm sure they are, and in Europe that will be following the same path. We also followed in the past couple of years, and many of these are working towards the creation of a joint ecosystem of technologies that will work in synergy with each other. I'm talking about ground segment, flight segment technologies, and I'm really sure we will have a combined improved value of the whole ecosystem in the next couple of years.
Okay, Lorenzo, very interesting position. I have two questions. We got a couple of minutes more. Actually, maybe you can be the one that answered to the first question I posed at the beginning of the session. And so the first question is, if the actual dynamic of cost and goods services and the price level of the services product that you all offer will support sustainable profits for the venture. I mean, I'm talking about generally speaking, the space economy world. So if there is room for profits, calling investor to getting in. So if you see in the future this dynamic, and also if you can just say the main problems. I mean, more some of them you already said, but the main problems or barriers for a startup to get financing in this moment in Europe, especially.
So absolutely. So concerning the first question, I think we need to understand what types of investors we're talking about, because short-term, let's say, investors that invest in, let's say, 2 to 4, 5 years, that are quite common, especially at the beginning of a startup. Maybe you want to get a pre-seed investment or maybe a business angel or something like this. That are typically interested in they investing quite soon. Well, their return on investment is really by by making sure the company can grow as much as possible to be able to secure further rounds. And this is always true, and it's also true when the company grows. But there's a limit to this. I think we can get to a point where the company needs either to become profitable and make sure that this is the end goal of a company, or that at least gets a fair exit, gets acquired, or gets an IPO. Depending on the type of companies that we see in space, this can be challenging. It's not very clear where the direction is going, and there is lots of work in the ecosystem to be done to make sure that all get a chance all the companies get a chance on exiting or providing profit to the investors. The second question was on the barriers, and for us the barriers,
yes,
as I introduced, the major barriers were really proving the team was able to deliver. And therefore, we had to do customer validation, extend our partnership, demonstrate in orbit the technology. Those are the barriers that everybody will have to go through in the space to make sure they're able to secure a successful growth.
Okay, Lorenzo, many thanks for your explanation, your answer, and we are on time, thanks to all. We move to the next speaker, which is Raffaele Mauro, which is the general partner of Primo Space Fund. Welcome, Raffaele. Good morning. Raffaele is a partner of the Primo Space Fund, a venture capital fund focused on space economy. And, you are the main actor here today. So just talking about finance and financing startups and new space economy. So the room is yours.
Thank you, and thanks again for the invitation. I'm glad to be here. I'm partner at Primo Space. What is Primo Space? Primo Space is an Italian venture capital fund focused on the space economy, of course. We launched 1 year ago in July 2020, and we performed so far 6 investments in 4 Italian companies, 1 Spanish and 1 Swiss company, and of course including AIKO with Lorenzo that just spoke with us. The fund size is 85 million euros, and our investment ticket is between 100k euros and 5 million euros. We will continue to allocate our capital during the next years, and we'll be glad to get in touch with new companies and entrepreneurs. So I start with my presentation. I will provide you a quick overview of the private investments in the space economy and how to reach out to investors. First of all, I think because of the previous presentations, I will not discuss this point so much, but we need to remind that during the last 5 years, there was an incredible acceleration within the space economy for a combination of factors, the cost reduction, the new Earth applications, the new typology of investors approaching the market, and of course, also the geopolitics, the new competition. In terms of investors, I think the thing that is worthwhile to underline is that most of the top VC funds in Silicon Valley, so the blue chip funds like Founders Fund, Bessemer, Kochla, Sequoia, they all put some kind of bet within the space economy. And also different typology of private capital, from the SoftBank in Japan to new typology of business angels. They are actually approaching this market. And this is very important because just until a few years ago, space was perceived as too risky, too long-term, too complex, and with too much asymmetric information. So let's. One of the consequences of this evolution is the rising level of both deal number, deal size, and valuation of space companies. Another very curious phenomenon is the fact that the acquisition market is evolving, and the internet companies, so the GAFA, the Google, Apple, Facebook, Amazon, they are actually not only building space projects, but actually acquiring space companies. So that's very interesting because, of course, for investors, investors need to exit their investments. They need to monetize their investments, and new acquisition markets are actually incredibly important. So let's picture this. What happened? Basically, during the last 5 years, approximately, there was this significant evolution of the volume of venture capital investments in general, and venture capital as a proportion of other typology of private capital allocated to space. If we look also on the deal number, so the average number of deals was actually below 10 in 5 years between 2000 and 2005, and now is above 200 per year in average. So a very, very interesting evolution, and it seems to continue overall. If you look at also, if you go back at the volume of investments, basically it's doubling every year. So it was a tiny number, so just 2 billion in 2018, but then 4 billion in 2019, and $8 billion in 2020. So even with COVID problems, so it's continuing to grow. Another aspect that I would like to underline is the fact that space is increasingly a meta industry, meaning that it's not just a specific industry classically defined. It's more an environment where other industries are putting their bets. So, of course, the classical definition of the space industry is the combination of upstream and downstream applications that was already discussed by other speakers. But if we look at the investment teams, so what people do with space and how to classify companies, there are actually some interesting things that we can look at. So there are actually space companies being real economy enablers for transportation, logistics, infrastructure monitoring, climate change protection, insurance, and multiple applications. There is the whole wave of digital economy enablers, so internet access and cloud computing, and all the merging between the internet infrastructure and the space economy, and of course the upstream and in-stream services, which are incredibly relevant. A few examples of Italian space startups. I think AIKO was already discussed. There are companies like Leaf Space building infrastructure for ground stations and ground station as a service for microsatellite constellations. Companies like The Orbit, already discussed, and new, I would say, outliers like Sidereus building new kind of launch systems, and also traditional large players partnering with US-based startups like Axiom Space for very ambitious projects like private space stations. So let's speak more about how to reach with investors. So given this kind of environment which is improving over time, typically the kind of private financing allocated to startups depends on the phase of the life cycles. So typically startups at the beginning of their life cycle, they ask money to family, friends, and fools, to government grants. Then typically business angels, so single individuals, private individuals, go and put their money, and then there is time for seed and early stage venture capital funds like Primo Space or other actors. Then, of course, the road is not ended. There are growth funds, there are private equity funds, and of course, sometimes the IPOs, initial public offerings, and the quotation in the stock market. What is the role of a VC fund, of the job of a VC fund? From a very material point of view, is just building a slice of ownership of a company, then try to help the entrepreneur to increase the value of the company in order to increase the value of the slice and then sell it with a capital gain. So that's venture capital in a nutshell. Of course, the reality is much more complex. There are complex negotiation within, and of course, there is an intensive work with entrepreneurs in order to help them to raise further rounds, to hire people, to structure their strategy, and help them basically grow. In terms of process, the typical VC has some kind of a cycle. So there is a origination of deals, typically from industry introductions, proactive search, organic deal flow, partnerships, and so on. Then the team typically evaluates the companies, and after initial interest, typically a term sheet, so a pre-contractual document with the main points, the main negotiation elements of the deal. There is a legal and fiscal due diligence. After that, an investment, the execution of investment, which is not a simple thing because it's not just wiring money. There are sometimes other complexities like anti-money laundering, anti-mafia declarations, and so on. And then, of course, following up the investments, typically joining the board if you are the lead investor of a round. The kind of evaluation that VCs perform is a holistic one. So it's a combination of things from the team, the technological solution, the competition, how is well structured the plan, profit and loss, balance sheet, and so on. Of course, everyone is aware of the fact that the business plan typically are a creative act. They are not written in stone, and they will change over time. But for entrepreneurs, the most important thing to learn or to take account is the realism of the assumptions and the rationale behind the business plan. So that's the core of the discussion will be there most of the time. Regarding the due diligence, there are at least 3 to 4 kind of due diligences. So, of course, the business due diligence, so analyzing the company, the potential evolution. So the companies should not be just cool technologies, but they are machines that transform economic, human, and material inputs into a profit. So they should be profitable in some way, at least in the long run. There is a financial analysis because the company should meet the investment thesis of the fund. Typically, VC funds are not created with the capital of few people. They typically VC funds raise capital for multiple sources like institutional investors, pension funds, banking foundations, family offices, and single investors, and they manage third people money in order to provide to them a return. This kind of return should be provided in a limited space of time. The typical lifetime of a fund is 10 years. And when you do the financial diligence, you try to understand if in a realistic time frame, 3 to 5, 7, 8 years, you can generate some kind of exit and sell your shares and generate value for the people that put money in your fund. The technical term is the limited partners, or the people that subscribed the fund. And of course, there is the legal diligence because most companies, they have some kind of complexity in terms of contracts with clients, with suppliers, with HR, with the team, and sometimes evolving corporate structures, and the legal due diligence, especially when you are investing on a multi-country basis, is very important. And of course, there is a technical due diligence for space investors. That's very important. So understanding the technology readiness levels, the patents, and how the companies are basically building a realistic technological and scientific proposition. In terms of negotiation, as I anticipated, the first document is a term sheet, so it's a relatively short document where basically the discussion is fixed, and the key points like valuation or liquidation preferences and the board seats are basically set up. Then there is a typical negotiation regarding the details and the investment agreement, which is a longer contract, and the document which is needed in order to actually execute the investments. I will, this is technical jargon, but in a very, very quick way, I would say that typically the pre-money is the value of the company in a certain point in time. The classical situation is that there is a discussion between investors and founders in order to set up the pre-money and agree in a specific value. And of course, the post-money is the value after the investments, after you're putting your capital. Part of the discussion is relevant because if you fix the pre-money and the post-money, you also fix the ownership share that the investors will get in a company. A very quick consideration about that is that very important for entrepreneurs is that the typical entrepreneurs is fixated with the discussion, the negotiation, and post-money and pre-money, but pay attention because the non-monetary elements of an investment agreement and the term sheet are incredibly relevant, and things like board seats and powers of the CEO and so on, they are very, very important, and please do not forget when you are negotiating with your investors. What funders need is smart money. So most of the cases, especially in the early stage, is very important to have not just financial capital, but also introductions, help for negotiations or finding potential clients. So smart investors will try to add value beyond the pure financial components of the round. Typical VC, okay, of course, is looking for an exit, is valuing a lot the team, because you can change sometimes the strategy, you can change the client pool, but it's very hard to change the team. So the founding, the group of founders should be very should be, I would say, committed for the long run, committed full time, with a good balance between them, and with good chemistry within the founding team. That's very important because this is one of the most common reasons why startup fail is because the founding team is not working. What the VCs try to do or not do, or at least what the good VCs try to do or not do, is of course provide advising, provide capital. They should not manage the company. So the entrepreneur and the investor, they have different roles, and it's a bad sign when an investor wants to run a company instead of the entrepreneurs, and vice versa. So that's very important to be mindful of. In terms of Primo space, so what are we looking for? We're looking for great teams with strong execution skills. Of course, space-related projects, so not just aerospace industries, but also the enablers for the space industry. And also, we're trying to avoid deals that are purely lifestyle and without ambition. So that's my presentation in a nutshell, and thank you, and I will be open for questions. I cannot hear you.
It's my fault. Thanks a lot for your presentation, Raffaele. You gave us a very clear, snapshot on how a venture capital funds works. How does you look for? And it's very interesting. I have a couple of questions in 2 minutes. Actually, you could be one that answered to my question at the beginning. The first one was the venture capitalists want to see more liquidity in the sector. You show about the scaling up. So investment could produce exits. A new bigger investor for the company can get in to help them to grow, which is the situation you see here today in Italy, in Europe? And the second question is, how is evolving for you the fundraising environment for the Italian startups? Thanks.
Okay. I can combine the both answers. So I will say that in general in Europe, the funding environment that was, I think, described also by Luca and Lorenzo, was not so good 10 years ago and even 5 years ago, but the situation is evolving very quickly. So there was a great fund built in UK called, so not anymore Europe, called Seraphim Capital. They are doing a great job. Then Primo Space was the first specific space VC built in Europe. So I think it's a great news that in Italy we were the first to do this in the continental Europe. And then now there are new funds being created. There is Cosmic Capital in France, Orbital Ventures in Luxembourg, and also some new projects in different other different countries in Europe. So I think that the environment is evolving quickly and the funding environment is improving overall. Beyond that, there are also deep tech funds, so funds that are investing in the science-based projects that are not limited to the space technology, but they invest in a broader set of technologies like robotics or artificial intelligence, medical, and so on. And they also could be approached by a space entrepreneur because he or she could find value in them.
Okay, thanks, Raffaele. I really appreciate your presentation, and goodbye. And we move to the next speaker now. It's to me to introduce. We will have a pre-recorded video from Leon Alkalai, which is the CEO of the Explorer One Fund. Dr. Leon Alkalai is a recently retired technical fellow of NASA JPL and Institute of Technology, where he spent 32 years. Alkalai retired from the JPL and created the Mandala Space Ventures, a space-focused, Pasadena-based incubator for new startups and emerging space economy. And Leon is also the general partner of the Explorer One Venture Fund, which is also affiliated with the Mandala Space Incubator. So I want to introduce the pre-recorded video for Dr. Leon Alkalai. Please proceed.
Afternoon, and I want to first start off by thanking Maria Cristina Falvella for inviting me. We met at the IAC in Dubai, and to Maria for inviting me, and to Roberto Battiston and my good friend Giorgio Sacoccia and everybody else, the large group of colleagues I have in Italy, in Europe, and around the world who may be watching this. So my name is Leon Alkalai. I retired from JPL, from NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, and created this new adventure or new venture called Mandala Space Ventures, which I'm very happy to share with you what this company is all about. As you'll see throughout my presentation, I'm also a general partner in a venture fund called Explorer One, and it is my pleasure to tell you a little bit about these two companies and more, what we're doing at Mandala Space Ventures, which is now part of entrepreneurial space. So I was 32 years at JPL working space science for NASA, and now I'm on a path to enter the world of entrepreneurship through Mandala. So let me start by just giving you a little background of Mandala. Mandala is what is called a studio venture. It is located here in downtown Pasadena, literally a walking distance from Caltech, a few minutes drive from JPL. And Mandala is what is sometimes referred to as a studio venture. It's a specific model of incubation. It's an incubator. And as shown here, the main purpose of this incubator is to support and fund founders in the emerging space economy. The outcome that we anticipate is that with this innovation, with these startup companies, that the Mandala will have an impact not only on the space economy, but a positive impact on life on Earth. And in particular, in areas such as improvements in terms of monitoring climate change, developing space infrastructure, enabling global communications and a global economy, and also applications to national defense as well. It is important that I kind of explain a little bit how Mandala works. What is the framework behind this kind of studio venture? Because there are a number of different models of incubation that are out there. And this studio venture is a pretty unique form, and it is best described through three pillars or three elements. One is a studio, the other is a portfolio of companies, and the third element is a venture fund. And I'll go through each one of these in a brief overview. So let me first start off by the Mandala Space Ventures studio. So studio is composed of a location and by a team. And the studio our studio is located in downtown Pasadena. It's an iconic landmark building on top or right a part of the Pasadena Playhouse. It's the Pasadena City Theater or the Playhouse. We recently rented here 5,300 square feet or 530 square meters facility in the Pasadena Playhouse. And in this facility, we have our staff, we host and incubate startup companies. We provide services including technical expertise, business, market development, IP strategy, operational support. We provide office space. We provide some initial angel funding. And we also advise in terms of product development, customer development, and other services. So as a startup company that comes here or gets incubated here, these are the services that we provide to those companies. Our strategy at Mandala is to become a global enterprise and to partner globally with primary organizations include NASA, JPL, Caltech, but also other national laboratories in the United States, Aerospace Corporation, the Space Force, and many other national laboratories. That's our strategy from a partnership point of view. But as those who know me from my past job at JPL, where I was heading up strategic partnerships, my goal is to have Mandala become an international enterprise where we partner with space agencies and space companies around the world. I've listed here a Canadian Space Agency, Aussie, ESA. Those are all organizations that I would love to establish partnerships and collaborations with Mandala. We have a team. I won't go through all the people here, but this was a very special team of people where we bring expertise in incubation, business development. People like Chris Ochoa is our entrepreneur in residence. Chandler Clemens is director of finance and quantitative analytics. Alex Maliki is joining us from one of the best known incubators ever, Idea Labs. Dr. Sandhya Narayaswamy is coming to us from Caltech. Emma Way is our lead for communications and media. And Stephanie Stansky is dealing with issues or topics of HR. So it's a really excellent team. I'm very proud of this team. And together we provide the services from Mandala. We also have a world-class group of consultants as part of our team. Ira Katz, Adara Sabahi, Peter Gage, Pez Zarifian, Tom Randolph, and Stephen Roy are all part of our team as part-time consultants. And there are more people that are experts that we bring in to Mandala on a need-be basis. and they're just add to the technical depth that we have at Mandala. I'm very proud of my board of directors. These are people who have lots of experience with startup companies and experience in growing large enterprises. Brad Schwartz, Brian Sullivan, and Stephen Kay are all very experienced CEOs and leaders in developing large enterprises, and they provide to me the governance oversight as in my role as the CEO of Mandala. They're my board of directors. I also have, as you will see from here, a world-class advisory board. Very proud to call a dear friend and head of part of the advisory board is Dan Golden, who used to be head of NASA for a decade. Dr. Charles Elachi, who is my dear friend, now at Professor Emeritus at Caltech. Very pleased to have Honorable Dana Shell Smith as part of the advisory board. She used to be the U.S. ambassador to Qatar and now is a consultant in Washington, D.C. And then Mr. Peter Lowy of the Lowy Family Group is an investor and chairman of the advisory board. He has invested in Mandala, the incubator, and he has invested in the venture fund as well. So let me tell you a little bit about the portfolio. And currently we have a number of ideas incubated in the portfolio, but we've actually launched our first company. The first company is called Continuum Space Systems. This is a completely software as a service company on the Amazon Web Services in the cloud. This company is a suite of tools, design tools and operations tools for anybody who wants to enter the business of space. So this is a software platform, software as a service for space applications. Whether you're designing a constellation or doing a mission to the moon, you can use this platform as a starting point to enter the space business. We've raised $3 million for this company earlier this year, and you see some of the investors, including our own Explorer One fund, Free Flow Ventures, Unlock Ventures, Addition Capital. A total of $3 million was raised, and the company was launched from the incubator earlier this year. The team has been put together for Continuum. These are the part of the team. I am the founding CEO and looking to hire a full-time CEO later in the next year and replace myself. In the future, I will not be a founding CEO. Part of the launching a business will be to have a complete team, especially with a CEO. Besides Continuum Space, we're looking to onboard existing companies, early stage companies, into Mandala. And in those cases, we bring them into the incubator, we offer them services, we invest some money into them, and we get some equity into the company through services. So this is our business model from the incubator. Either we launch a company from the incubator, or we onboard companies from outside the incubator, and then we mentor them, advise them, and we get equity directly from our investment, and also equity for services. We have 3 companies that we're considering right now. Hydroplane, which is a hydrogen fuel cell company for the small plane industry. Chasqui is an optical communication company, and Mannequin is a robotics company for sterilization of rooms and healthcare operating rooms, hospitals, and it is certainly relevant to today's situation with COVID. This is just a recent picture from yesterday. Many of you may know Charles Elachi, who used to be the head of JPL for 15 years, now at Caltech. He came to visit us and wish us well. He's on our advisory board, and also shown here are the founders of the 3 companies we're looking to onboard, Nitas and Gupta, Vaish, and Jose Velasco as well. Very quickly, let me tell you about the Explorer One fund. It's a separate company in which I'm a general partner. Similarly, venture fund Explore One invests in the emerging space economy, but it has a special relationship with Mandala. It's a separate company with a special relationship with Mandala. We see the space industry evolving and getting segmented into the following areas shown here: data, software platform, supply chain, transportation, and so on. The space investment area is clearly evolving into this kind of different segmentation areas, which we're tracking very carefully. It's a $20 million fund. We look to make a small number of investments with follow-up money reserved for follow-on investment as well. Currently, we have 5 companies we've invested in. Our sweet spot for investment is $500K per company. Sometimes it's $250, sometimes it's $1 million, but the median or where we want to invest is $500K per company. And you see the 5 companies we've invested in so far, and we're looking to make more investments in the future. I mentioned I'm a general partner. Proud to also mention that Phil Scully is my general partner in the venture fund, and Daniel Kleinman and Dan Wallman are 2 of the principals in the fund. And with that, I think I've maybe exceeded my allocation for a few minutes, but I thank you for your attention. And if you have any questions, please feel free to send me an email at leon.alkalai@mandalasspaceventures.com. And with that, I would say ciao and see you in Italy. Thank you.
Thanks to Leon. I hope to see him personally here next times. I want to move now. Actually, it was a very excellent presentation, let me say. Different instruments that he's working on, and he gave us a snapshot of the American approach on this new space economy world. So I want to move to the next speaker, the next speaker, which is Ugo Celestino. Good morning, Ugo. Just because you are Italian, I had a couple of words left from my mouth. Ugo Celestino works as policy officer in the Director General of the Defense, Industry and Space at the European Commission, and is in charge of R&D and support of startups and SME with the Cassini initiative that is a part of the big EU space program. We know that the EU invested a lot of money and is going to invest huge amount of money on space. We hope so, also more than is planned. So it's up to you telling us more or less. I guess you are going to speak about the public role in this world and actually a focus on the Cassini initiative. So the floor is yours. Thanks.
Yes, thank you and good morning. Well, finance and new space fit into each other like really in no other modern industry, because space is still a capital intensive sector with long lead time to get to market and high risks. So even if you use off-the-shelf component and benefit from the technological trends that lowered the barriers to entry, as a space entrepreneur, you easily need millions once you start to develop your idea. So if you manage to kickstart your venture in a university, for example, with a small grant, you have to be capable to access finance pretty soon. And big ticket funds, apart from your pocket, can come only from 2 sources: investors and paying customers. The best known US disruptor of new space got the pocket, because they made the billions in the internet boom, where they disrupted the online payment and the online shopping market. In space, there are different customers than on internet, and they could not have succeeded without the right type of clients. On top of their money, in fact, they soon got access to public contracts. Public contracts were there at the right time because the US administration from 2010 onwards decided to buy space services and not just space assets. Then Financial community started to look with interest to these entrepreneurs creating a new market in space because these were pioneers. They proved it could happen, and so others followed. So the US success in early stage startup funding is based a lot on the amount and size of contracts offered by NASA and Department of Defense. In 2020, government expenditure on space in the United States was 47 billion. Only 13 billion for the whole of Europe and almost 9 billion in China. So paying customers and investors are the only viable source of finance to support the scale-up of new space company. When they come together, then they act as a multiplier, and very good things happen to entrepreneurs. American startup, indeed, supported early on by private capital and public contract, easily got to the unicorn valuations. Rocket Lab, I think, passed the 1 billion valuation 5 years after the incorporation, but Momentus reached 2 billion valuation just after 36 months from incorporation. Unfortunately, we have to acknowledge, I mean, this is a fact, in Europe, for many reasons, during the last 10 years, we have not seen such entrepreneurs willing to risk their fortunes to make such bold bets. And neither, and I would say this is even more important, we have not seen the push from Space Authority member states to proactively support new space, new entrant, new entrepreneurs. Only recently, decision makers realized that Europe cannot wait any longer. I remember seeing excellent startup present at this very forum that 5-7 years had to struggle to get attention, to struggle just to raise a few millions. Now they are considered world-class success story. But as we have heard, probably they still do not enjoy the golden evaluation of their US competitors. So the numbers clearly speak for the situation we face. The space industry has seen a 38% growth rate between 2012 and 2020, so almost 10 years, where a total of $182 cumulated billion was invested in space startup. Of this total, Europe received only 8%. 40% went to US new space company and 45% to rest of world companies. Across 20 years, from 2000 to 2020, 44% of the investors came from US. So 538 investors. The next was China with 136 investors. The first EU country is France with only 17 investors. So here I have some bit different data from what was shown earlier by Isa, but my sources are the same with some additions. In 2020, we got, I have a data of about 28 billion invested in space and 16 funded by venture capital. Europe, the investment in which went to European space ventures amounted only to 500 million across a total of 57, almost 60 deals, and with 5 companies getting a big share of this total. These somehow represent a progress because 500 million invested in Europe is a significant growth. We see that there is an interesting dynamic where 76% of the investment deals were led by an European investors, and the role of public institutions was also important. 60% of these investors, this investment involved at least one public backer, be it a public investment bank or a regional fund. But the bottom line is striking. From 2010 to 2019, if we look at the number of rockets launched, US launched 206, China 209, Europe only 70. If we look at the number of satellites at the same period, US sent in sky 1,352 satellites, China 403, Europe only 371. If we look at the moon missions, USA had 4 missions, China 8 missions, and Europe only 1. We have a structural handicap vis-a-vis the United States. There, the capital market there and the private investment by size is really truly continental, and this is an impact. The European companies usually, as we have heard, do not have so many alternative offers when they look at venture capital. Capital market is also not truly continental. And the regulatory burden is, we have to acknowledge, is heavier on this side of the Atlantic. So even German space laser company, Mynaric, they prefer to get listed on NASDAQ and not in Frankfurt. And the listing on the stock exchange is made easier in US via the special purpose acquisition companies. Then we have to recall that investors relevant for space are not just a venture capital fund. The whole range of capital providers are needed, from the angel investor to family offices, corporate venture fund, private equity, and even crowdfunding can be relevant. Some of these issues and problems are common to many high-tech sectors in Europe, not just space. But we cannot, we have to acknowledge that tech funding, this is recent data, in 2021, broke a record with more than $100 billion of capital invested, 100, and it was 37 billion in 2020, with 98 companies reaching the unicorn valuation. So space has clearly some additional problems and issues that we have to face. And here is there where the Commission is focusing its effort. The Commission has a mandate to deal with space. We have to recall that we run a space program according to the subsidiary principle. So we work in space within the perimeter of the EU regulation defined by member states and in complementarity with what they do themselves or with the European Space Agency. So since few years, Commission gets increasing demand from member states to act on new space. And since the establishment of the new Director General focused on space and defense industry, the DG DEFIS, where I work, we have launched for 2021 and 2027, for this 7 years period, an initiative called Cassini to strengthen the support to space-based entrepreneurship across the whole life cycle of a startup, with a particular focus on easing access to finance. Private investment into scale-up of European new space companies is not yet at the level of our ambition, our technical and R&D capability, especially for the big ticket funding. So when they need more than 5-10 million to scale up. Against this background, the Commission is working to put in place a 1 billion European Space Investment Fund under the InvestEU to boost space startup and SMEs growth. The Cassini, and this is the Cassini Growth Fund. The key success for this Cassini Growth Fund is if we will manage to trigger big venture capital funds and private equity funds, not necessarily specialized in high-tech or space, to step in, to invest, to co-invest, so to let themselves pulled in alongside smaller but more specialized investors. In USA, this is happening. BlackRock is doing this, and there is no reason why it should not happen in Europe. So, beyond finance, to push new space in Europe, it is also necessary to improve a lot the access to public procurement. So we are, in the Commission, in the EU space program, we are shaping, let's say, a new space approach, meaning that mainly we will open up as much as possible public procurement in Copernicus, Galileo, and our future component of the space program, like secure connectivity, or for the IOD, IOV activities, to the EU new space company SMEs present in Europe. And public procurement, this is indeed the only one thing more important than access to funding for new space company. If they got contracts, investor will rush to invest. We have heard this morning. If we facilitate only access to finance by lowering the hurdle, this may not have such a lasting impact on new space in Europe as much as opening public procurement. So the ideal solution we shall pursue, therefore, is a seamless support from public funding to R&D to procurement, also via pre-competitive procurement or procurement of innovative solution schemes. Wrapping back up, what are now the source of finance for growth that we manage at European level for new space company? What are they available now and in the future? Well, we invested in 2020-2021 via our InnoFin Space Equity Pilot in 4 venture capital. Primo Space is one of them that we heard before. Then there is Orbital Venture, V Squared Venture, UVC Partner in Germany. They should together generate 300 million of funding capability. And investments are already happening, both in upstream and downstream company. But to my knowledge, and we have heard this, they target especially early stage and relatively small ticket investment. So Cassini seed and growth funding comes next, and it has to be announced early next year, where we will act again as a fund of fund to mobilize at least 1 billion euro in investment capacity with a focus on bigger ticket for growth, for scale up of company. Then we have the European Innovation Council Accelerator, which is already operating with success. They provide the blended finance to a single company up to 17.5 million euro, 2.5 million euro in grant and 15 million in equity investment. Last but not least, the contracts. We will have more contracts made available to supply space system or component to your space program or to our IOD, IOV activity, and we will have another call issued next year, early next year, managed by ESA. Can we do more? Is this enough? Well, probably it's not enough, and we can do more, but not alone. Commission is just one player. To achieve result, we shall ensure really that member states and European Space Agency, as well as the financial institutions involved, like the European Investment Bank, play together the same music in an harmonic way. As in many other challenges, l'unione fa la forza, l'unione fa la forza, and we can stand only united. Thank you. Over to you.
Okay, Ugo, very, very interesting speech. As we have some time available, I could ask you a couple of things. So maybe you say something already, but still, if you can point out specifically how can Commission line up with other players across the EU? We're talking about space agency, talking about institution, financial institution, public and private, big ones. So in order to have an impact. And furthermore, I ask you one of the questions that I put at the beginning. I mean, is also related, is more specifically how the European Union can increase the capacity of funds, means numbers, but means also dimensional. We were talking before about exits from venture capital. So who's going to be later on? And you said about also having on board a general, let's say, investor, not specifically space related. But this is another key point, having more liquidity in the system in order to have this process of acquisition and exit going very, normally. So companies get more and more support for increasing and growing dimension. So if you can answer in a couple of 2-3 minutes this question, sorry.
Yes. Well, first of all, the cooperation with the other players. Paradoxically, is easier to cooperate with the private players because they are more directly motivated to get results. We are working with ESA since more than a year. We are trying to line up our support to entrepreneurship, and there is a full backing from our hierarchy to continue to do so. Commissioner Breton, Director General Aschbacher, they speak and they are very, very committed to this. What I would say is needed is maybe a bit of a little push from the working level, where we have to make each of us, and I speak from the public side, Commission, ESA Fonctionnaire, National Space Agency, we have to be thinking a bit more, to be a bit more customer oriented. Customer meanings our stakeholder. Who are our stakeholders? Not the new space out there. We have to think how our action can benefit them, and get out of our box, of our comfort zone, reach out to the other players. So it's a bit of it's a cultural switch. It does not cost money. It only takes willingness and effort from each of the players. And I would say more at the working level than at the political one. Political level is clear. They know we have to work together. It's now up to us to deliver. We have to make a bigger effort in this sense. Then if we move to the other questions on the capital market, well, that's I think we have to put this into the broader picture of the capital market union. We know the internal market for goods and services is functioning. The European capital market is not yet there. I mean, there have been a lot of reform, there's been a lot of regulations implemented, but we are not yet there. And the moment where we will manage to have companies from Italy listed in Frankfurt, or investors from Portugal funding companies in Bulgaria, then there we will have achieved. But this is still, it will take, I think, 5-10 years until we get there. But there are certain things that can be done. InvestEU is a big step forward. The work we're doing with the European Investment Bank, and we have seen there is I would say a boom in terms of funding going to tech companies. We just have to put space into this stream. Space is not, and this, the pioneer investor understand this. We have to pass this message to the bigger private equity houses. They have to understand that space is a good investment, as well as other digital, other artificial intelligence, other new tech, where they are already investing a lot. So there's a lot of push to be done in creating the right awareness in the financial community.
Okay, Ugo, thanks for your approach from Bruxelles, and we hope that all the institutions will work together the next years to do what you said, and I guess we have all the instruments to do so. And I will move to the next speaker, which is Olivier Dubuisson. Good morning, Olivier. There we are.
Good morning.
Olivier is co-founder of KARISTA, a venture capital management company dedicated to the early stage high-tech companies. The company managed 250 million, let's say, and they also started the activity of the Cosmic Capital Venture Capital Fund early. I just to say, I recall when 2019 we were talking with our colleagues at CNES, because the Italian Space Agency, but also the CNES, we were working together to understand how to set up, a venture capital fund. And at the end, after some year, we have Primo Space in Italy and Cosmic Capital in France. I guess is a very important step for the European Union having this specific venture capital fund. So, Olivier, the stage is you. Tell us about KARISTA and Cosmic Capital, please.
Okay. I need the slide, if it's okay. Thank you. I guess everybody can see the slides. So, yes, I want to present to you KARISTA, which is the management company, and obviously Cosmic Capital, which is a fund that we just launched to invest in the new space sector. Next slide, please. Next slide. So first, I would like to present to you the management company in a few minutes so that you understand where we are coming from. Next slide. Next slide. So KARISTA is a VC firm. We've been on the market for 20 years. We have invested in more than 85 companies. We started this in 2001. In fact, we first invested in Paris area, Paris region, into various subjects, including health, digital, deep tech, and green tech. And we have raised 220 million euros so far. So in fact, we have various investors coming from a bank, corporates, and obviously from public money. So we are used to invest in that type of company, very early stage, high tech, and we are very focused also on the ESG type of criterias. So what means, in fact, the number of employees, the number of patents, and the fact that the technology are coming from research, public research centers is very important to us. Next slide. So we are obviously a team, a French team at the beginning, and now we have two venture partners. One is based in the UK, Alain Gavin, and one is based in Germany, Thomas Bleyer. And we have started this business with the CNES. So above the picture, you have a C for Cosmic Capital. That means that this is the team dedicated to Cosmic Capital. Next slide. So our vision is we want to build a platform. For the moment, we have 3 funds that are investing. And so we are very active, actually. And so next year we will invest not only Cosmic Capital. I will come into more detail about this fund later, but we will also invest our what we call Cap Decisive 4, which is dedicated to digital health. And we invest also another fund called the Paris Region Venture Fund, PRVF, which is dedicated to any type of early stage company with a tech approach. In the coming years, we want to raise a bigger fund and to also invest more and more in Europe, not only in France. And this is already the case with Cosmic Capital. And we want also to invest in the later stage type of company, not only in seed. Next slide. So these are a few investments that we have done in the past. There is one unicorn. We in fact invested in this company called DBV Technology. It has nothing to do with space, but just to mention, in fact, this company we invested in 2003. It was only 2 guys in a garage, and at the end, the company was valuated $2 billion on the Nasdaq. So it was a big success for us. But apart from that, we have invested in many companies, including AI, and now, of course, space. And this is why I mentioned here ExoTrail, which is one of the companies that is part of the new space sector. Next slide. So I will come now in more details about the fund, Cosmic Capital Fund. So what we believe is that there are a lot of deal flow, a lot of projects in Europe. We've seen this in the US with very, very big valuation. We've seen a lot of projects in the US. And we believe that there is some kind of a bubble around the new space sector. And we think that we have an opportunity here in Europe for many reasons. First of all, Europe is late compared to other countries in the space sector, and there are now a lot of projects, and there will be a lot of opportunity for investors. Second, in Europe, we see that the valuation, the pre-money valuation of the company are much lower than in the US. Third, in the US, they have already very well-structured fund, and they don't need our money to finance a venture in the new space sector. So with these thing, we have decided to concentrate our investment in Europe, and so far we have had a lot of projects, incoming projects, and our deal flow is very important, and we have the quality as well. So we are not really worried about deploying the fund nicely in projects that we really believe in. Next slide. To start with, we have had a long relationship with the CNES. In fact, at the very, very early stage of the fund, the CNES has issued a tender to start this fund, to start Cosmic Capital. And we were part of the competition. And after a very long process, they have decided to go with us because we had a good track record and a good team. And obviously, the CNES, which is the French Space Agency, invests in the fund, but we have a broader agreement with the CNES. They help us in the deal flow. They help us they help the companies of the portfolio to do business. They help the company in the portfolio to improve their technology. They might be a customer of those companies. So it's a very strong relationship with the CNES. In parallel, we have a strong relationship with ESA concerning the deal flow. As you know, ESA has developed the business incubation centers throughout Europe, and these business incubation centers give us a lot of deal flow, European deal flow, and Cosmic Capital is not dedicated to France. Cosmic Capital has a possibility to invest anywhere in Europe, and this is why the European deal flow and this agreement with ESA is very important to us. Next slide. So our investment strategy, everybody knows that the new space sector can be divided in two main segments, which is downstream and upstream, and the fund's main focus is downstream. So what we believe is that there will be new companies that will disrupt different segments, including finance or agriculture or insurance, and these companies, in fact, are digital. They are using a type of data coming from space. They are using Earth observation, positioning, and so on. But mainly, they are using data coming from space, so they are digital company. And we have had a lot of projects on this segment, and we intend to deploy something like 80% of the total investment on those projects. The second segment is upstream, which includes all the technology to manufacture, launch, and manage satellite constellation. And we have also a lot of projects there. And if the fund is big enough, we will invest more and more in this segment. But this segment is very capital intensive. So if we do investment in this segment, which we will have to structure the financing to make sure that we have enough money to go to the end. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, we have this deal flow through our ESA partnership. So up to now, we have received something like 700 projects. To explain the context, when we started the project Cosmic Capital back in 2018, a lot of investors didn't believe that we would have so many projects. Many people thought that there was not enough projects and startups to deploy such a big fund. And now everybody has really completely changed their mind when they saw the deal flow, and not only the numbers, but also the quality of the deal flow, the quality of the teams. So we are really very happy about the deal flow that we get in Europe. Next slide. To be more smart, let's say, we have organized some kind of services. I would call those services three types of services, in fact. first service that we provide to our LPs is business intelligence. So it's what we call the past service, which means that we analyze the market. We give information to the different LPs about what type of project has been financed, what company has been acquired, and so on. So it's mainly a marketing survey. Second service that we propose is a business opportunity. So when we invest in a company, we offer to the LPs the possibility to either co-invest with us or test the product of the startup, or even if they want, if they can, acquire the company. And the third service is the what we call the strategy committee. In fact, it is a think tank to just try to imagine what will be the future. So the president of this think tank is François Hauck, the former president of Airbus Defence in Space, and former president of Airbus Venture. And we have with us PricewaterhouseCoopers to manage this group. The idea is to try to imagine what will be the future. And it is important not only for the LPs, because they understand where the market is going and they talk to their peer, or they talk to their customer or to their supplier within this group, but also it is important for us as an investment team to understand what's going on and try to make the good choices. Next slide, please. So this strategic committee is not only composed of people coming from space, but it's also composed of people coming from the digital activity. And we believe that we saw Elon Musk, this guy was coming from the digital world and disrupted the space world. He didn't know anything about space. And we believe that space companies, space people, space activities have a lot to learn from other people, from people coming from outside this particular domain. And this is why among the strategic committee, you can have people like Jean-Baptiste Rudel, who was the former CEO of Criteo. This guy is a 100% digital guy, and he has another way of seeing this. Next slide. And I think it is the end. So this is the let's say the idea of the fund. So the fund is today 38 million euro. We expect to make a second closing by the end of next year. We believe we can go up to 65 million euro. It will depend. But for the moment, we saw a big acceleration. There is a momentum. When we started the fundraising, many LPs were a little bit reluctant in investing in such a fund. And because of the actuality, because of a lot of things that happen on the space sector, now people are really more interested in what we do. And we believe that the second closing will be much easier than the first one. We invest in seed series A in Europe. We will invest in something like 15 companies over the next 4 to 5 years, and we will invest ticket up to 6 million euro on the total company's life. Next slide. That's the end of the presentation, and I'm ready to answer any question if there are.
Thanks, Olivier. Very interesting presentation, actually. If you don't mind, as we have some minutes, I would do 3 questions. I say it now, and after maybe I can recall if you don't. First of all, is as you are managing a venture capital fund, deep tech general and space ones, I'd like to know the difference that you are experiencing between these two approaches, if there are differences between the general one and the space related. The second question is an interesting point, because Cosmic Capital, as you said, is reserving 75% of investment on downstream and 25% on the upstream. So I want to know, I don't know if you were with us before, at the beginning, what is downstream for you? I mean, it's you intend for your downstream also the companies or startups that use marginally, let me say, satellites data. For example, riding share companies or food delivery company which rely on navigation information but can do the job without it, maybe. So, or you are strictly related to, for example, analytical product or services integrating different data. So I want to know much more about your approach about downstream, what you comprise on it. And the third one, sorry to do it, is we said a lot of words about liquidity in the market. So to help the exits of your investment, which is your position on that? What you see the situation is about availability of bigger guys helping you exiting and doing other investment. Thanks.
Okay. So the first question was about the difference between deep tech and space. So I would say that we encounter the same type of project, especially in the upstream. So in fact, the deep tech project that we have financed in the past includes nanotech and mechanic or whatever, and chemistry. And we believe that we experience same type of problem. And one of the big problem that we have in those projects is it takes time. You need a lot of money to go up to break even when you achieve the break even. Also, we experience a lot of people coming from a lab and without much experience in business management, finance, marketing, and so on. So on deep tech, including space, we have that type of problem where we have to structure the teams because we don't have the same type of problem in digital, which includes also the downstream. So deep tech is tedious, long, exits are complicated, and the valuation sometimes can be very low, especially in Europe. So the idea is to have a good return on investment, is to be able to sell your technology outside France, outside Europe, maybe, and in the US. And there is something that is a little bit specific to space, which is the sovereignty. Space has always been very close to defense industry, and sometimes for the exit, that could be a problem compared to deep tech, standard deep tech. So this is the main difference that I can see. But apart from that, it's very similar. Second question was about downstream. How do we see the downstream? So to be quite honest, at the beginning, we had a very large vision of downstream. Because we were scared that we wouldn't have enough projects to fulfill our requirement. Now, I would say that this is not a problem. We have so many projects that we can make both people using data from space, but not so strong analytics, or very strong analytics about data from space. So, but our view has changed through the time because we saw the deal flow, and we realized that we had enough project with this narrow specificity. About liquidity, as I mentioned, liquidity is a problem, but it's something that you have to address when you do the investment at the very early stage. You have to make sure that the valuation that you are paying will be acceptable to the buyer. You have to make sure that there won't be any limits because of sovereignty on your liquidity. So this is on the downstream part. It should be very easy because it's very similar to the company that we are financing in any digital sector. In the upstream segment, it will be more difficult than the standard deep tech because of this sovereignty type of problem.
So thanks, Olivier. You answered to all my questions. So a very interesting position, and good luck for everything on your job, which is fundamental for the entire ecosystem. Huh? You are also doing, let me say, not a public job, but is an important role.
We will announce the two first investment by the end of the first quarter 22. And we expect to make 5 investments in 2022.
Great. Okay, thanks. Thanks, Olivier. And we move to the next step. Unfortunately, there was a problem with the next speaker. It was Graf from the International Finance Corporation. That is a member of the World Bank Group. She experienced a problem, so cannot make it this morning. So probably we need to conclude here the session. I mean, I would have a very difficult job trying to summarize what you heard, because we heard a lot of interesting information. The panel and the session was incredible, high level. So that's why I want to thanks again the organizer and scientific committee, Roberto Battiston, to have called such a very high level panel. So we have the different perspective from the agencies, from the public institution, from the venture capitals, and from the startups. So I guess we could have done a very clear picture of which are the problem, which are the stronger points, so we can work and do it better in the future. So saying that, I guess we can re-adjourn the session at 12:30 for the next pitch session. So goodbye, everybody, and thanks.
Buongiorno a tutti e benvenuti, and thank you very much for this great pleasure to conclude this marvelous Congress online. But the Professor Battiston yesterday told to me, I think that everyone is Italian. If you wanted, you could speak in Italian. I fake these shows. Thank you very much. Allora, il professor Battiston mi ha detto ieri pomeriggio, mi ha detto, guarda che alla conclusione probabilmente saremo tutti italiani. Se vuoi, se preferisci, parla in italiano. E mi piace l'idea di usare questi 10 minuti di tempo che ho a disposizione, ed è un grande onore per me poterli usare parlando in italiano, perché alla fine io penso che l'opportunità, io sono di Torino, sono sabaudo, ho questa grandissima questo grandissimo orgoglio sabaudo, e in questa città, in questa regione, alla fine abbiamo veramente dimostrato di avere la possibilità di fare la differenza. Io penso che la space economy oggi valga tantissimo, tantissimo prospettiva, tantissima idea di futuro. Se si pensa che oggi le space economy vale 350 miliardi di dollari più o meno, si prevede che tra gli anni 30 e 40 arriverà a 3.000 miliardi. Oggi che si possa parlare di automotive e che Torino possa essere trasformata da automotive in aerospace lo dimostra il fatto che abbiamo inaugurato e stiamo per inaugurare il distretto aerospaziale, la cittadella dello spazio. Bene, che cosa posso dire? Io penso che la space economy si traduca in una domanda di che cosa ha bisogno Elon Musk. Elon Musk come punto di riferimento privato, ci sono tanti altri privati che si stanno affacciando al mondo dello spazio, però io penso che sia la grandissima opportunità sia quella di unire il privato al pubblico. che sia motivo di allargamento. Space economy alla fine è la possibilità di tantissime aziende di poter apportare il loro know-how per fare la differenza, per far fatturato. Quante aziende, e io mi faccio una domanda, quante aziende non sanno di poter aggiungere qualcosa a questo mondo, a questo servizio? Io penso che ci sono veramente tantissime opportunità, tantissime capacità, tantissime intelligenze, tantissime conoscenze, tantissimi know-how in grado di poter aggiungere qualcosa. Questo io penso che l'Italia, che oggi alla fine se non vado errato è il quinto paese al mondo in percentuale di PIL investito, che è tantissimo. Possiamo fare ancora di più. Possiamo fare ancora di più pensando che la filiera italiana oggi ha un prodotto completo, può veramente unico nel genere, unico al mondo. Penso che non ci siano tante altre nazioni in grado di poter completare la filiera. Voglio aggiungere una cosa a cui tengo tantissimo. In psicologia c'è una parola che io odio a morte ultimamente, che viene ripetuta continuamente da giornali, telegiornali. La space economy, lo spazio, rappresenta proprio quel punto di riferimento psicologico che viene definito, che fa la differenza tra fragilità e robustezza. Il fragile oggi è quello che parte da A per arrivare a B. Una persona o un sistema o un'azienda parte per arrivare a B e sa perfettamente che al primo incidente crollerà, non si rialzerà più, perché per definizione è fragile. E la metafora è la spada di Damocle. Damocle che dice al servo: se vuoi goderti la festa, siediti lì, goditi la festa, sapendo che sul collo gli ha piazzato una spada legata a un crine di cavallo. Se quel crine si rompe, il servo saprà di morire, perché è fragile per definizione. L'opposto di fragile, fino a pochi anni fa, era il robusto. Il robusto è quello che parte da A per arrivare a B con un progetto preciso, puntuale, con un obiettivo puntuale, e sa che se cadrà, si risolleverà esattamente come prima. E qui c'è la parola che odia a morte: il robusto, il resiliente, la resilienza. Cioè, io parto per arrivare da A a B e al primo incidente crollo e mi risollevo esattamente come ero prima, come ero all'inizio. Sono un Super Mario Bros. Con lo stesso sorriso verso quell'obiettivo preciso, verso B. Ecco, la metafora è l'araba fenice. L'araba fenice che muore e rinasce dalle sue ceneri esattamente come era prima. Cioè, questo vuol dire che quell'errore, quell'inciampo, quell'incidente non ci ha insegnato niente. Cioè, noi ci risolleviamo e continuiamo esattamente come prima, con la stessa fisionomia, con gli stessi dettagli, con gli stessi particolari. Ecco, io non posso pensare che da un incidente non ho imparato niente. Io non posso neanche immaginarlo, perché io tutti i giorni accetto le sfide, accetto di prendere parte a una sfida, accetto che cosa non conosco perché voglio imparare da quello che non conosco. E infatti l'opposto del fragile, un filosofo islo-americano, Taleb, dice: no, l'opposto del fragile deve essere l'antifragile. E cioè, io parto da A per arrivare a B, e questo è il sistema spazio, la space economy per eccellenza. Parto per arrivare a B e ci avrò 1000 incidenti, ci avrò ogni giorno un percorso difficile, come un grande ricercatore. Cerco risposte, mi faccio una domanda e ho 2000 risposte, solo una è quella giusta, ma ogni giorno ho un piccolo incidente e ogni giorno da quell'incidente imparo, cresco e faccio tesoro da quell'incidente. La metafora dell'antifragile è l'idra, questo mostro mitologico per cui se gli tagli una testa gliene crescono 2, se gliene tagli 2 gliene crescono 4. E l'idra ti guarda in faccia e ti chiede: ti prego, tagliami la testa. Ecco, il sistema space economy, il sistema spazio, è proprio questo. tagliami la testa, voglio imparare da ogni incidente, voglio imparare da ogni piccola cosa che mi succede, perché voglio crescere, voglio ampliare le mie conoscenze, ed è per questo che Space Economy si prevede che tra gli anni 30 e 40 si arriverà da oggi 350 milioni di dollari a 3.000 miliardi di dollari. Questo è quello che io penso che debba essere la Space Economy e la vita di ognuno di noi e delle imprese in generale, e cioè la maggior parte degli ingredienti di antifragilità, e cioè quindi la capacità che ogni giorno ti insegna qualcosa, ogni giorno ti fa crescere, ogni giorno ti fa capire che probabilmente sono partito per arrivare a B, ma poi ma non sono sicuro se arriverò a B, arriverò a D, a E, a F, a G, a H, e eccetera, 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 e cioè ogni giorno imparerò a crescere sempre di più con la capacità di fare la differenza. Io penso che fondamentale per la Space Economy sia quello di allargare i propri orizzonti, di immaginare, di cercare, ma già succede questo, la cittadella dello spazio lo dimostra, e cioè che il privato e il pubblico si uniscano per crescere insieme, e senza dimenticare ovviamente l'università, il Politecnico, l'università e tutti quelli che possono aggiungere un piccolo particolare, tutti quelli che possono veramente sentirsi antifragili, con la capacità di imparare ogni giorno e ogni momento e ogni dettaglio ci possa fare la differenza. Oggi si parla di persone che possono fare veramente farti crescere, farti fare la differenza. Cioè, quali sono i limiti? Ecco, io dico sempre che la Space Economy è la dimostrazione di come può un limite essere trasformato in opportunità. Ogni limite può essere trasformato in opportunità. Di che cosa, ritorno alla frase iniziale, di che cosa ha bisogno Elon Musk? Di tutto. I limiti sono solo nella nostra testa, nella nostra immaginazione, la capacità semplicemente di immaginare che cosa il nostro futuro ha bisogno. Tra 10 anni ci saranno dei lavori che neanche immaginiamo, e i lavori di oggi saranno spariti. La dimostrazione è quello che adesso, tra poco, avverrà, e cioè la premiazione di 2 start-up. Le 2 start-up è stata la competition, sono 2 vincitori, ed è per questo che passo la parola a la project manager presso Fondazione Amaldi, Cristina Maria Gogu, che penso che sia, eccola qua, Cristina Maria o Maria Cristina?
Cristina Maria Gogu. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I will switch to English for our audience. Yes. So thank you, Marco Berry.
Thank you very much. It's very glad to be here this morning.
We are now announcing the winners of the pitch competition. This is an initiative organized and sponsored by Fondazione Edoardo Amaldi, and is dedicated to individuals or teams or startups and researchers with innovative projects or ideas in the space technologies sector to provide our community with the opportunity to give visibility and make their project known within the context of the New Space Economy ExpoForum 2021, and to all major players in the space sector, investors and experts in the field of entrepreneurship, technology and innovation. So the prize up for grabs consists of pitching opportunity for the best selected scale-up and startup during the NSE ExpoForum 2021, 1 full sponsorship package for the best scale-up to attend the next edition, 1 entry sponsorship package for the best startup to attend the next edition. And after the announcement of the winners, they will be pitching in 3 minutes the key elements of their entrepreneur idea. So I would like to thank all the participants to our pitch competition. We received great proposals, both in terms of numbers and quality, but only 2 could be selected as the best startup and the best scale-up. So let's launch the first video dedicated to the announcement of the best scale-up. So congratulations to Prometheus Space Technologies. The reason why Prometheus has been selected as the best scale-up is because our capable, determined, and motivated team promoting global impact and benefit for the humankind with a technology that provides the users with advanced, rapid, and resilient response mission data, focusing on environmental disaster prevention, satellite manufacturing and operation, and ground segment mission control room. So Prometheus, please, the floor is yours for the 3-minute speech.
Hello, it's great to be here. Thank you for this amazing opportunity. I just share my screen right away in order to make the presentation. Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are so excited to be here at this amazing event. We are grateful for the Cione Amaldi for believing and trusting our team's efforts. And the following 200 seconds, I will present you why is that. We saw the problem firsthand last August during a wildfire in minutes away distance from the Athens area, which creates an unspoken disaster of more than 50,000 hectares of forest. Over 300 homes and businesses were destroyed. Human lives have been lost. Additionally, over 200,000 people have suffered from breathing problems for weeks. So we built a solution. Our team at Prometheus has developed a groundbreaking solution, the Hercules Rapid Resilient Crisis Response Mission that will provide humanity with a new layer of protection against cosmic dangers. Our Hercules R2 CRM mission uses high-resolution satellite data and by an innovative process provides solutions in wildfire prevention, wildfire preparation, and wildfire response, offering an holistic approach that will offer complete services support to our end users. The Hercules R2 CRM mission is a revolutionary environmental disaster prevention system that will respond rapidly in order to save lives. The value we provide to users briefly states as advanced and predictive data for environmental disaster with space technology, satellite manufacturing and operation, and last, ground segment control room monitoring capabilities in our end users' space location. The market. The United Nations latest research shows that climate change is a huge 26 trillion growth segment with a major financial benefits. From this huge market segment, we intend to have 150 million share within 5 years of full Hercules project operation. This is the global Earth observation ecosystem, including great and amazing pioneer ventures. The main difference of Prometheus related that from the great competition are that we offer complete services which include operating in multiple spectrum bands, providing customers state-of-the-art software on ground segment platforms, as well in blockchain-based solutions which cover everything they need in spec technology today. Finally, standing here in front of you because as a testament to the hard work and dedication our team has put forth. I'm so proud that we are all united by one shared goal to benefit humankind with our technology. Thank you.
So congratulations again, and thank you.
Thank you very much for the great and amazing opportunity to allow us to be here with you.
And now we will launch the video dedicated to the announcement of the best startup. So congratulations to Titan 4. Titan 4 has been selected as the best startup because they are specialized in the elaboration and processing of satellite data around the world using INSAR technology on a millimeter scale in an exclusively fast, economic, accurate, and versatile way, and because the company improves the life and the work of people and enterprises thanks to a fast, highly precise, versatile, and non-invasive actions that reduces materials and cost compared to the traditional system thanks to the absence of a hardware device. So, Titan 4, please, the floor is yours for the 3-minute pitch.
Hi, thanks to everyone. So, I wanted to use Titan 4 Hi, I am Elena, and I think that it's very important to start from one point. Transport, energy, telecommunication, and civil infrastructure have a geographic large presence in the reality. And sometimes the monitoring is not always so easy. So it's at this point that Titan 4 can work. Who we are? Titan 4 is a company that was selected and incubated in the ESPI program, and we are specialized in processing and analyzing of satellite data from INSAR technology. So what we do, we monitor ground movements, structural stability, and health of public and private structure and infrastructure. But how we do it? We do it with an INSAR technology that is a powerful technique that can remotely measure millimeter scale deformation. But what we verify? We make possible to verify the health of public and private structure and infrastructure, the stability of land on a large scale, structural deformation, and the seismic area. But why? Why we are different from the market? What we have more? We have more that we can do it in a new way. The new way is characterized by a fast way. We are fast on it. We can give feedback in 24, 48 hours in an economic and versatile way. Our technique includes a model with INSAR radar aperture, as I already say, and the use of definable areas, and the frequency of service can be weekly or monthly. This is our way of processing. We use satellite images, data processing, and visual report. So the target can be different, small and large organizations, but also private individuals and public entities. And the peculiarity of our work is of course, that we work on a fast way and economic way, but our way to process is fully automated. It is possible to obtain real-time data fusion, visual report, image creation, past trend. We can go back to the past since 2015, and we can give some prevision about the future. We can give to the user furthermore alarm notification in case of critical deformation, and we analyze the geometry of the object. What more? Here, some application where our service can be applied. I will be fast on it, but if you want to know more, feel free to contact me at the end of the presentation. Here, some example where we work, and here our platform, how the user can see our platform, our roadmap, the patents that was already filed, and our future program, our team. I can't speak about everyone because I don't have time, but this is our team, technical team and commercial team, and our strategy compared to the reference market. As you can read, we are speed and accuracy on the feedback. You can have the feedback in a very quick time, and the price is advantageous, and there is the possibility to personalize the subscription. Pay what you ask for, you ask more, and you will have more. You have furthermore training and dedicated assistance at every step, and the platform is easy to access. The user can access by multiple devices. Here are some of our clients, Nazca, Hyperloop and CVA, and here some of our partners. Our business model, about it, I think that is very important to say that in every time, in any case, is important, is necessary an adaptation to the needs of the specific person or specific enterprise. You pay what you ask for, you have training and dedicated assistance, and you can go back to the past, and you can have some prevision about the future. If you want to include our service in your work or in your life, you can contact us, send a request, communicate your needs, and you will receive a call to speak with one of our partners. Thanks for listening, and see you soon.
Thank you, Elena, and congratulations again. And congratulations again to the winners and to all the participants. Marco Berri, the floor back to you for the NSE 2021 Career Award. I will also say it in Italian. Marco Berri, lascio la parola a te per la premiazione NSE 2021 Career Award. Ringrazio tutti i vincitori e tutti i partecipanti.
Thank you very much. It's a great honor for me to present you the people who that I think that the people, the very best, one of the CEO of the very best agency industry in Italy, in Turin also. He drive this industry since October 2015, and he drive this industry since I think in 2017 in the quotation quote in Borsa di Milano, but is the perfect the perfect synergy from through the private and public agency, because that's operation has a contribute from ASI in the next president of the Professor Battiston, and Mauro Piermaria. That person is a great honor to present you the engineer Giulio Ranzo, the CEO of Avio. Mr.
Thanks,
Ranzo,
Marco.
thank you to you. Thank you very much for
Thank
everything.
you very much for your introduction. It's great. It's a privilege to be here and to be recognized for this important event. I apologize. I'm as always in the middle of an airport at the moment, transiting in Frankfurt for just a few minutes. So
Yeah.
I unfortunately had to run. I just came back from the United States on a business trip. And yes, you are right. We are part of a very important evolution in the space industry, which is transitioning from what happened in the past when space was a privilege of just a few. It's coming to a reality where it's really becoming an industry for everyone, and it's opening up very much to private capital, not only to public support. So today we really we are experiencing a blend of these two worlds: the space which we do for public institutions and the part that we do for commercial companies and private investors. And you are right. I had also the privilege to take my company Avio public in 2017. It became the first rocket company ever listed on a stock market in the world.
Sorry,
and
Mr.
today,
Lorenzo. No, how is important the synergy from private and public?
it's very important because the amount of investment that you have to field today to create new technology cannot be funded by either one of these two sources. You need to combine the two. We need to go a little bit faster than in the past to create new technology, so you need to couple the two sources. And more importantly, today the private companies become very important customers. In the past, the customers were almost only the public sector, and today you have a combination of different customers. So relying on these two elements and working with both is extremely important. So today we are obviously in my sector, which is that of launching satellites to space. We are experiencing literally a boom of this activity, really very fast growth, because the demand for new applications, and we have heard about a few in the previous presentations regarding Earth observation or telecommunications, are growing in number every day. So consider the fact that when I was nominated CEO only 5 or 6 years ago, in the world, we performed 55 space launches in 1 year, okay? And this was not too long ago. This year, we will do more than 130 launches in the world. So it's almost 3 times in only 6 years. So the activity is growing like crazy. Exactly.
There aren't other activity that is increase or improve in like positioning in this consider. It's not possible to consider that the space it's a really great opportunity to keep growing.
Yes,
no?
We think it's an opportunity, especially for young people. You know, I am 50, and I realized that this is the industry for people who are 30 or 25, because this sector requires very long project cycles. And so the future will be of the people who are now 25 or 30. And it's amazing to see what they do. I just came back from the United States. Yesterday, I was with a very, very brilliant man in Denver, Colorado. He has a startup that develops revolutionary propulsion systems for rockets, and he is 31, and he has already collected more than $100 million in funding. So you see that they have a different way of thinking, a different way of doing, and it's so amazing to see these talented young people see what they can achieve for the future.
You have another strange opportunity, because in exactly, I don't know in which years, but with the 50 manager of Avio, you founded the name of the I have here the
in
one
orbit.
In orbit, yes. In orbit,
yes.
We sell the 5% or 5% of Avio, no agency. That's important.
Yes, when that's
no, but
important.
that's very important because this manager is believe in your industry
company. Yeah.
The company,
yes,
yes,
it was an experiment I did 6 years ago. With my colleagues, I decided to buy a part of our company, and therefore to transition ourselves from being employees to becoming shareholders and investors. And this has been very important because we are all very attached to what we do. We love the business. We don't do it just because it's a job. It's a bit the mission of our life. We like it. We put our money at risk, even if we are not very rich men, but we put our savings at risk because we trust in what we do, and therefore we enjoy doing what we do as entrepreneurs.
When a group of managers can make a difference in the company, no?
Yes, it's very, very important, very exciting. Certain times it has been very, very tough, very painful. But at the same time, when things go well, it's very rewarding, and we enjoy that.
That is a very challenging, very great challenge. Yeah.
Yes.
The last question: how is important the university, polytechnic, or university in general?
Well, it's I think it's fundamental for what I said before. The technology is evolving at a speed at which you need the academia to help you identify the best technologies, to develop them faster than others. So as a matter of fact, today, for example, with the University of Rome and with the Polytechnic of Milan, I am developing special agreements to really work together in the same place, to really aggressively develop the technology of the future in a much shorter period of time. We no longer have the luxury of time. We have to go way, way faster. And so I very much will try to do this in a joint work with the universities.
Thank you very much, Engineer Lorenzo. It's a great. Thank you very much. I know that there is two people. It's a great pleasure to introduce you, Professor Roberto Battiston and the Professor Maria Cristina Falvella. Roberto, it's a great pleasure. Miss President.
Hello.
Hello. How are you?
Good morning, Marco. Thank you for your very nice
thank you
presentation.
Thank you
course,
to you.
Congratulations to Giulio, but thank you for leaving also Giulio to tell us more about his experience and the success of this fantastic adventure that we recognize as a significant step in new space economy in Italy.
Yeah.
Is Giulio still connected or not? Maybe not, yeah? No,
I think
Giulio is still, yes, because he's in Frankfurt.
Welcome back.
I thought that Giulio is airplane is leaving.
Now he's connected, but just to say him hello. Ciao, Giulio. Congratulations for this award. And then it was very interesting to listen to you and to recall how many progress this field has done and how many challenges you have in front of you. But without challenge, there is no progress. So I think it's a good moment. Yeah, it's a good moment now. Great.
Very much. I thank you all for this prestigious selection and having thought about me and our company. And I thank you so much for it.
Great. Okay.
Very well. We want to go on and listen about your success next year. So.
Okay. I think we can now move to the final moment of this conference. What do you think, Maria Cristina?
Yes, I think so. After congratulating again also Prometheus and Titan for the award, on behalf of the Edoardo Amaldi Foundation and Fiera Roma, it's a pleasure for me to bring you to the end of New Space Economy ExpoForum 2021. The program that we have developed in a synthetical digital format, like many international conferences this year, offered an outlook on the most interesting trend of the evolution of the space sector and confirmed the need to discuss a new space economy project and issue to foster the new dynamics, to catalyze an acceleration in bringing together the participant, the stakeholder, and the international organization. Despite the digital format constraints, I am pleased to say that the general feeling was very close to an in-presence event, and that all the participants had the opportunity to benefit of an interactive and hopefully fruitful atmosphere, both in the plenary sessions and during the many webinars, which animated the debate and the New Space Economy Trends project and new proposal. The past 3 days have given us insightful interactive discussion and a great chance to share ideas and projects on how space can support the growth of a safe, resilient, and sustainable society. The goal of a New Space Economy ExpoForum was to gather ideas and new opportunities to enter the game, follow the evolution of space economy, and even anticipate the running trends in order to remain at the forefront of this process and contribute to drive space products closer to final end users. It has been and will always be a new endeavor, an effort to figure out what is going on and mostly what comes next in the space economy at worldwide level. I would like to express once again my grateful thanks to both Eduardo Amaldi Foundation colleagues and Fiera Roma team for the huge work done to set the New Space Economy ExpoForum 2021 digital edition to be a really great event. I would like also to thank you, Roberto, and our distinguished keynote speakers who shared their valuable experience at the plenary session, all the presenters, all the authors, reviewers, and all the parties who have contributed their best effort and assistance in organizing the event and ensuring the success of it. Last but not least, on behalf of everybody, the organizers, the speaker, and the participant, I am very pleased to warmly personally acknowledge Professor Roberto Battistone, Chair of the New Space Economy International Scientific Committee, and for having developed and organized the very outstanding program of these 3 days, and to whom I leave the floor now for a very last arrivederci. Looking forward to the next edition. Thank you again, Roberto. And thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Maria Cristina. Thank for this word and for all the work which has been done by the Amaldi Foundation and the colleagues and by Fiera Roma. What to say at the end of these 3 days, which were very intense and very dense of high level contribution by outstanding speakers. I think the theme of this year has been particularly easy to choose because of the preliminary work which has been done in defining the Matoshino's manifest and addressing the challenges of a global issues where the society in the world is to face with, from pandemic to global climate change to resilience and to asset protection and so on. However, it has been demonstrated in these very intense days that space has the capacity, as the industrial and research contents to quickly develop very outstanding and new technologies to help making people, the society, to address those challenges and to find solutions for those challenges. So space as an accelerator is now the theme which we are going to look forward for the next years. And I'm pretty sure that the New Space Economy ExpoForum will follow that in the coming editions in the future, because this exponential growth of investment that we've just seen today in the finance session is a demonstration that there is a long way to go and many opportunities which will open up in the coming years. So it's really a pleasure and a privilege to have the possibility to work with you, Maria Cristina, the Fondazione Amaldi, and Fiera di Roma, and all the speakers which have been contributing to this event. And I'm sure that the growth of this New Space Economy ExpoForum will will increase and will continue in the years to come. And so arrivederci to next year for the even more interesting and fascinating Space Economy ExpoForum.
Grazie and arrivederci to everybody.
Ciao to everybody.
Thank you very much, Professor.
Ciao, ciao.
Grazie Marco, a presto.
Ciao Marco, ciao Roberto.